Chapter 229, Formation Breakthrough. When Lil Pagoda led Suemo into a storeroom, he was dumbstruck. Inside the storeroom, the piles of rotten metal silver were like mountains. Other than the rotten metal silver ore, there was a little pile of ore of various colors. Where did this come from? Suemo pointed at the little pile and asked Lil Pagoda. Lil Black shot and climbed up to his hands, furiously waving its pair of antennae. Suemo instantly understood. So it was Lil Black. He complimented, Lil Black is very smart. He put a lingdan on his palm. Lil Black used its forelimbs to grab the lingdan and cheerfully climbed away. Lil Pagoda was connected in mind with Suemo. He could feel Lil Pagoda's intentions of wanting credit. As he saw its round and chubby body swing and tremble, he instantly grinned. Feeling Suemo's happiness, Lil Pagoda was even more smug, twirling around Suemo, shaking its body so the gourds on the eaves rang. Silly Bird was full of pride, but her eyes were staring greedily at the lingdan that Lil Black was pinching. Gulp, the throat visibly swallowed. Suemo coincidentally caught it, and instantly roared with laughter, pointing at Silly Bird and mocking, "You glutton." Suemo was not angry, and threw 2 lingdan at it. Silly Bird easily picked them up in her beak, shook the feathers on her body, and, without a trace of shame, proudly left. After he finished laughing, Suemo looked at the mountainous piles of ore and felt a dilemma. After making the black processing meditation mats, his need for rotten metal silver had instantly decreased. However, if he didn't use the large amount of ore that was piled up here, then it was such a waste. The grade of the rotten metal silver was not high, but it was a frequently used material. But if it was to be smelted and purified, it wouldn't take just a while to finish with such a large pile. It was not worth it to spend the time. Suemo quickly thought of a solution to roughly process the ore. He would make billets of rotten metal silver, and then forge them again when it was time for them to use. Metal billets would not take as much space as raw ore. Suemo had to consider the amount of space his dimensional ring had. The other reason was that he could use formations to do rough forging, which saved time. Suemo had never seen formations used specifically for forging, but it did not stop him from making such a decision. As his comprehension of formations deepened, Suemo's confidence increased. It was undoubtedly an extremely interesting matter to do something that had never been seen before. He decided to make a large formation that could forge all of the rotten metal silver ore into billets. Rotten metal silver was a third-grade material, and it was not hard to smelt. It did not require golden crow fire. Suemo did not plan on using golden crow fire. Golden crow fire might be pure, but there was not enough, especially to smelt so much ore at once. The fire formation Suemo chose was of course not a low-level formation like Lee Fire Formation, but a 4th-grade fire formation called Jade Flame Formation. Jade Flame Formation could produce green flames that were more than enough to smelt the rotten metal silver ore. However, it was the first time Suemo was working with so much ore. He needed to carefully consider how to set it up. Pu Yao and Gong Sun Cha were fiercely fighting in war chess. To let this person in Yao play war chess anywhere, Suemo remade the war chess again. The excuse was to make it a leveling kind of game. Then he threw it to Gong Sun Cha. Gong Sun Cha guessed it, but was happy to play stupid. In any case, he just wanted to play war chess with the mysterious person. Without anything to do, Pu Yao was naturally willing, especially when he saw how smug Suemo was recently. He became very discontent. His Golden Wing Great Rock Matrix did not produce the effect he predicted. Pu Yao vented all his displeasure onto Gong Sun Cha. The pitiful Gong Sun Cha, having just managed to make an acceptable 3-section wave killing charge, and just as he reached the level of being able to use 10 soldiers to kill 5 of Pu Yao's soldiers, Pu Yao, without a second word, directly put out a new killing move, the interlocking wall-style defense formation that was specially made to defeat the 3-second wave killing charge. Consequently, Gongsun Cha was defeated by Pu Yao so badly he couldn't find which way was north. Gongsun Cha was so abused that he wanted to die. He gritted his teeth with red eyes as he started the game again. Feeling that he had not vented the displeasure inside, Pu Yao did not hesitate in accepting. 12 matches, Pu Yao used 12 different tactics. Each time, Gongsun Cha's forces were completely obliterated, not one soldier remaining. Even if Gongsun Cha was extremely hardy, and did not falter, he had been killed to the point that his face became green. When he returned to the camp, Gongsun Cha's black face, and the terrifying pressure and coldness exuded by him made everyone shudder, their little hearts jumping rapidly. Gongsun Cha slightly raised his head. On his handsome face, there was a small dark smile. The camp instantly became deathly silent. At night, Gongsun Cha found Zuemo, there was someone spying on us today, he was killed. He looked full of energy, without any of the displeasure and darkness he had during the day. Did you find who it was? Zuemo stopped what he was doing. A subordinate of someone called Venerable Qi Xiashan recognized him, Gongsun Cha said unconcernedly. Supposedly, he has about 100 people. They have intentions towards us. Zuemo felt slightly surprised. It was the first time he had encountered someone that had tried to find trouble with them of their own accord. Maybe they feel that we pose a threat, Gongsun Cha pondered as he rubbed his chin. Why don't we fight? Zuemo probed. He was very surprised. Gongsun Cha was a battle maniac, but speaking up until now, he still hadn't mentioned fighting. The group has progressed very quickly recently. It's best to wait a while longer, Gongsun Cha explained. They had enough Jingshi at the moment, and did not need to rush. Zuemo also understood. After the formations had been carved, the equilibrium of their bodies had been broken, the growth of Ling power had increased. This situation would continue for a while longer until they reached a new equilibrium. He suddenly thought of a wonderful idea. I have a way for them to quickly increase strength. Gongsun Cha hurriedly asked, what way? But there is a possibility of injury. Zuemo hesitated. That isn't a problem. Gongsun Cha said in a normal tone of voice. Everyone smelt something different when Boss came to the camp again. Even though everyone was training hard, but secretly, they were all paying close attention to Boss and Lil, Mississippi, thinking about the inhuman treatment they had received yesterday afternoon. Even Ma Fan, the core who usually received the best treatment, couldn't help but shake. A nightmarish memory. They saw Boss start to work at a corner of the camp. Pieces of materials appeared in Boss' hands and then quickly turned to streaks of light that entered the ground. So he was making a formation. Their hearts landed. Everyone knew that Boss was skilled in formations. Maybe Boss felt the camp was not safe enough after the spy had come yesterday. However, many people felt that Boss' caution was unwarranted. These recent days, they had detected their improvement. After 2 consecutive victories, 2 victories where they were fewer in number than the enemy, their confidence had exploded. The effect of the 3 formations were too evident. Many people wanted someone to come to their doors so they could try it out. Zuemo worked for half a day before finally standing up in satisfaction. He took out his 5 essence sword set. The 5 flying swords of different colors spun restlessly in front of him. Looking at the 5 flying swords, he felt something that he didn't know how to describe. After the 5 essence sword set had been completed, he had never used them in battle. Now, he was using them to make a formation. He was using the 5 essence sword set to make a formation as he suddenly recalled the sword essence formation when Gongsun Cha said the group was in a period of increasing strength. The sword essence formation of the sect had many transformations, and had been incredibly effective to the growth of his strength, especially his understanding of sword essence. The group of people under his command were growing their Ling power. If he could give them some pressure, it was beneficial for their progress. When Zuemo discovered that only 5 people of the 100 or so had comprehended sword essence, it strengthened his thinking. It had not been hard for Zhuai Mo to comprehend sword essence. At Wukong Sword Sect, both Wei Xing Shixiang and Luo Li Shixiang had comprehended sword essence. In the sword test conference, the majority of competitors had comprehended sword essence, which had caused Zhuai Mo to unconsciously feel that it was not a very difficult matter to comprehend sword essence. How could one not comprehend sword essence? With the 5 essence sword set as the core, and adding on some necessary formations, it was the weaker version of the sword essence formation. Other than adding pressure to the people, it could also help them comprehend sword essence. Sword essence was shapeless, everyone's sword essence was different. Many things could only be understood and could not be passed on in speech. It was better to throw them into a place full of sword essence. Even if he could not guarantee that they could definitely comprehend sword essence, but it could greatly increase the possibility they could comprehend sword essence. As to injuries, Gong Sun Cha, who thought of life like grass, didn't care. How could this bunch that lived so dangerously care? The entire formation took up 7 or 8 mu. When the formation took form, sword essence dominated, and killing intent was dense. In the sky above the formation, a black cloud formed, thunder and lightning occasionally occurring. People's hearts shook. When they saw Gong Sun Cha's faint smile, their hearts sank. Zhuai Mo had gained great inspiration from the creation of the sword formation. When he finished, he ran to the storeroom to start to set up the formation to smelt the ore. He didn't move the ore, using the storeroom as the Dan cauldron, and started to set up formations. Many of the rules and restrictions now flew away. He felt free and unrestrained. Spells and materials flowed from his hands, flying into the walls of the storeroom as though they had eyes. He was completely in a trance, his mind open. Every detail of the formation continuously floated up into his mind. It seemed that just as a thought would appear, the spell on his hands would finish. The change of his 10 fingers became increasingly faster, like moving clouds and flowing water. On the walls and the surroundings, profound character patterns spread out with amazing speed. In just 2 hours, the walls, ceiling, and floor of the storeroom was covered completely with characters. The big formation was finished. Zhuai Mo dazedly stood motionlessly at his spot. His mind was still in that free and unrestrained state. That feeling was just too wonderful. A beat later, he gradually came back. When he swept across the complicated characters patterns on the wall, his heart instantly felt full. However, he quickly came out of this intoxication, shaking his head and smiling. Then he swept the pile of other ores into his ring. After that, he took out 3 pieces of 4th-grade jingsha and put them into the center of the formation. He didn't even inspect the formation. He was extremely confident that this formation had no mistakes. Chapter 230, Sky Glass Wave. Venerable Qi's mood was terrible. For a few continuous days, his subordinates did not dare to even breathe loudly. Big Kong had been killed. When the news had passed to his ears, even he had been suspicious that he had heard it wrong. Big Kong was the most skilled at sneaking and spying, and had never failed before. This time, it was just a spy. Theoretically, there should have been little danger. He was both shocked and regretful. His shock was that the strength of the other group was beyond his expectations. His regret was that Big Kong had died. That combined formations that the Kong family had were now halved in power now. He still had a headache over comforting second Kong and third Kong. Their elder brother was killed, how were the 2 brothers willing to let it go? Just now, he had said all he could to barely manage to persuade the 2. If they could hold back for another month. Zhuai Mo stood outside the storeroom. The storeroom was like an enormous fire cauldron, a warm and serene green fire pouring out of the walls. Within 3 zhang, there was no feeling of burning. The green light was so warm that one could not relate it to fire. This showed that the setup of the formation was very successful. Every thread of fire power was under control. Zhuai Mo was very satisfied. Even he was slightly surprised that he could reach this level. Precisely controlling every thread of Ling power was one of the final goals of all those who used formations. However, that was only in theory. It was not possible in reality. If the Jade Flame formation, fire formation had been perfectly controlled, it only needed one piece of 4th grade Jingshi, not 3 pieces. The fire formation needed to be maintained for 3 days and nights. Luckily, Zhuo Mo did not need to stand guard over it. Shrieking like that of pigs being killed could be heard from the faraway camp. Zhuo Mo patted his head with some irritation. He forgot to add a sound-blocking formation on the outside of the sword formation. Yet when he thought about it, he did not continue the idea since other than some voices, there was no other disadvantage. It was better for Gongsun Shidi to deal with the matters of the camp. The Sky Wave Fist scripture had reached his hands for a long time. It took Zhuo Mo some effort to cultivate. The difference between fist scriptures and sword scriptures was very large. He had never cultivated one before, and needed to start from the fundamentals. He had called Zhong Ru over again. When Zhong Ru was told that he needed to teach Boss how to practice the fist scripture, he instantly became dumbstruck. Most of those that practiced fist scriptures were in Xian Kong realm. Kunlun realm was where the sects of sword Xiu were, and Boss sword scripture cultivation was not low. Why would he think of cultivating a fist scripture? He didn't ask, but tried to do his best. None of what he learned was some kind of secret. He had cultivated Ningmai mostly on his exceptional persistence. Yet the speed of Boss improvement made him gape in shock. In the span of a few days, the fist scripture took form on Boss' hands. Even if there were some places that were not perfect, but this speed was really frightening. Sky Wave Fist Scripture was the spell that he practiced the most, and had the deepest comprehension of. This fist scripture was not complex. It was the exact opposite and could be considered simple, but simple did not mean it was easy. It demanded highly of the body of the person who cultivated it, and the path was one of one person defeating 10. There was not much technique. In Xian Kong realm, many Dhyana Xiu that were of great age did not have the power to cultivate it to a deep level. Behind the fist scripture, there were special chapters which described how to exercise the body and bones. Most beginners needed to start from there. Boss' body was so strong. Zhong Ru was shocked and slightly puzzled. Boss looked very thin, and did not show any signs of strength. It must be that Boss was exceptionally talented, he thought with some admiration inside. Dhyana Xiu that had no sect were even fewer in number than roaming Xiu, their days were extremely hard. Body cultivation required many Ling medicines. There was a common saying of 7/10 scripture, 3/10 medicine. It could be seen how important resources were. However, Ling medicines were very expensive. The Dhyana Xiu of sects were better off with the supplies from the sect. Dhyana Xiu with no sect were a tragedy. Before Ningmai, Dhyana Xiu had nothing else to show except a body full of physical strength. They could only do things like hard labor. Zhong Ru quickly adjusted his mentality. The scriptures that he practiced were all very average. This caused him to not have any exceptional areas. However, what no one knew was that his samadhi was extremely deep. This was the most important reason he could reach Ningmai. It had to be said that this was the place that Dhyana Xiu surpassed all others. Everyone could cultivate samadhi, simple and easy to learn, it did not cost anything to learn. As long as you put the effort in, you could cultivate to Ningmai. Those with extremely deep samadhi would have strong minds and resolute determination. The effect of things like illusory formations were lessened against these people. Zhong Ru did not hide anything. The version of Sky Wave Fist Scripture that he cultivated was not complete. Many of the unique parts had been discovered by him through his own cultivation. He was also willing to pass it on. Other than the slightly displeasurable aspect of having Jinji put into his body, the time that he had spent under Boss had been the most comfortable days he ever lived. Every day, he only needed to cultivate. In the 2 battles, he didn't need to worry about anything. The division of spoils was also extremely fair. Boss was the most generous of all the leaders he had worked under. But what he really could not resist were the formations. He didn't know what the other people thought, but in his view, these 3 formations were custom-made for Diana's show. Due to his body cultivation level not high enough, he had broken through to Ningmai but still had not formed an abhina. With the 3 formations, he now had the confidence of forming an abhina within a year. Privately, everyone was speculating that Boss had other formations. Zhong Ru did not like conflict, but he was not stupid. With such good benefits, he wouldn't leave even if they threw him out. Not just him, many of the Xiuzhi that had no sect were thought similarly. No one was more clear than they were regarding the difficulties of not having a sect. The world was no longer the same. Previously in Little Mountain Jia, as long as they did not have much ambition, their Ningmai cultivation was enough for them to have an idle life. But now, if they were not in Jindan, then living alone was the same as asking for death. These days, it was not a simple matter to find a good boss. Zhuemo did not know how many thoughts went through Zhong Ru's heart. He was fully concentrated on practicing Sky Wave Fist Scripture. Zhong Ru's understanding of Sky Wave Fist Scripture was deeper than he had imagined. He gained much from the other's guidance on many points. Carefully savoring the change of Ling power inside his body, he understood. Right now, he was in the 2-mountain stage. His body looked thin, but in reality, his body was extremely compact and suitable for Sky Wave Fist Scripture. The moves of Sky Wave Fist Scripture were very simple, but had their unique qualities. In one instantly, Sky Wave Fist Scripture was able to use all the Ling power in the body and after revolutions in the arms, expel it with punches. This demanded extremely highly of the user's body. Otherwise, after the Ling power made several revolutions, it was enough to tear the channels and body apart. After the Ling power continued for 5 revolutions in his body, the Ling power vibrated like running thunder. Zhuemo stood, his legs apart, breathing out as he punched. A jade-green fist energy left his hands. The fist energy expanded dramatically in the air and roared like a tiger. Zhong Ru's pupils suddenly expanded, shocked inside. This punch had 8/10 of his own full power blow. But compared to how long he had cultivated, and how long Boss had cultivated, Zhuemo managed to get the feeling. The crux of this fist scripture was not the amount of Ling power, but the number of times it moved forward and in reverse. The more revolutions there was, the longer the preparation time was, the stronger the fist energy. He instantly became excited. Just now, after 5 revolutions, his channels had shuddered, but did not respond in a major way. Maybe he could add a few more revolutions. As his mind worked, the Ling power in his arms started to circulate again. 1 revolution, 2 revolution, 3 revolution. Out of caution, he did not dare to add too many at one time. 8 revolutions. Green light came out of the skin of his arms. Adding on the black-green metallic sheen that his body already carried, what appeared was a black-greenish metallic color. At the side, Zhong Ru's eyes suddenly widened. This was... Ha! Zhuemo shouted, and the green fist energy left his hands again. Zhong Ru was familiar with the bright green watery light that glowed. That was the sheen that would only appear when the fist energy was concentrated to the extreme. The green watery fist energy attracted the water energy in the air as they left the hands, the watery energy furiously heading towards the fist energies. As the fist energies flew past, it left behind a wild trail of mist. Zhong Ru was stunned. This was so powerful when it just hit empty air. If it hit a person, then what would it look like? His thinking had not been wrong. Zhuemo was more excited now that he had received motivation. It had been so long since he had felt so excited. 8 times was enough for him to feel pressure, but that was not his limit. Maybe, he could see where the limit was. When this idea popped up, it could not be stopped from taking over his entire mind. His hands did not listen to him as they began a new round of preparations. His thin arms suddenly expanded. The bright green sheen that had risen before dimmed instead. Zhuo Mo's skin that was exposed to the air became black-green, and seemed to have waves rippling underneath. 12 revolutions. The channels in his arms were in pain from expansion. It was like a bow pulled to the limit. A gentle shake would cause Zhuo Mo's arm muscles to tremble. His arms were heavy as though they were made up of lead. He felt extremely burdened. When he raised his arms up, his movements were extremely slow, and occasionally shook, and the big drops of sweat on his forehead all showed that he was using great effort. Zhuo Mo's eyes were open wide as though he was going to tear open his eye sockets. Sounds of his teeth grinding came out of his mouth. Break! Using the last of his strength, his fists punched out. There was no wind, no howling. Two green fists that appeared to be carved out of crisp green glass drew out two green light streaks as they landed on a two-person high rock far away. The two fists were extremely detailed, even the joints could be clearly seen. Pew! The moment the fists and the rock collided, it created a cloud of dust, covering the entire rock. Zhuo Mo almost collapsed. He could not stop himself from sitting down on the ground. Without the energy to look at the result, he furiously panted. It had been too dangerous just now. The Ling power in his arms had almost gone out of control. If he lost control, then his arms would have exploded. Thankfully, he still felt fear. A gust of wind blew and the dust scattered. Where the rock had been, there was nothing except a half-zhang deep hole. There was no scattering rock, no explosive force, no shocking sound. The rock had turned to dust in an instant. Zhong Ru, whose mind had always been strong and composed, paled, his eyes terrified. That was the killing move of Sky Wave Fist Scripture, Sky Glass Wave. Chapter 231, Warning, Miss. The middle-aged person said respectfully, "We've just received a message from Jean Darren. They were attacked by an unknown force. 7 dead, 16 wounded, Jean Darren was also lightly wounded." Oh, Mu Shi's expression changed. Who did it? A female, origins unknown. Jean Donran's subordinates have already started a search, but there has been no success up until now. One person. Mu Shi was slightly shocked. She had not interacted much with Jean Bouzhen, but the few times were enough for her to conclude he was an experienced and calm person. With the protection of an entire corps, yet he was still wounded by a single female. She naturally was shocked. A Jean Dan? The situation is not clear. The middle-aged man clearly was puzzled as well. However, the female is said to also be seriously wounded. Jean Darren hopes that Miss can keep this person in mind. I hadn't thought that a measly Sky Moon Jia still had crouching dragons and hiding tigers. Mu Shi sighed and then said, "You can keep the incident in mind. If we encounter her, do not let her go. The threat of a Jean Dan is extremely high to us, however, our energy should be mostly spent on the original plan." "This subordinate understands," the middle-aged man responded. He hesitated before saying, "This subordinate does not understand. If it really is a Darren, then why would they not try to get in contact with us? There are many possibilities. Maybe the Darren is not in a good situation, or maybe he does not want to see us." Mu Shi said unconcernedly, "That has nothing to do with us. Our job is to find that Darren, even if it is just a trace. There naturally will be other people to deal with the remaining matters." "Yes, this subordinate has asked too much," the middle-aged man hurriedly said. Mu Shi waved her hand. "There's no need to be so careful. I have not been commanding for long. I still need to borrow your experience. It is this subordinate's honor." Seeing the respect on her subordinate's face, Mu Shi was helpless. She suddenly recalled something. Have we found the Moon Mo Brigadier? No, the other is very careful, and did not leave behind many traces, the middle-aged man said. Oh, be careful. Mu, she thought, and then said, if you find the trail, do not enter into a conflict with the other. This battle will be long, and will not end so quickly. Yao and Mo should be allies, not enemies. This subordinate understands. Zhuo Mo had also started cultivating in this period of time. No matter if it was Ling power, spiritual power, or body cultivation, he was in a period of rapid progression. This was the golden time to cultivate. He didn't dare slack off. During the day, he cultivated Ling power in his body, at night, he cultivated his consciousness. He even temporarily pushed his studies into formations to the side. Formations were the core, but it was a labor of time. In the short term, it could not increase his strength, but cultivation could. Sky Wave Fist scripture was just a very normal scripture, but with the mountain physique the great strength produced motivated Zhuo Mo. Especially the Sky Glass Wave, it was even more powerful than Ma Fan's illusory shadowless sword of destruction. What Zhuo Mo needed to do now was to compress the amount of time needed to prepare the attack, to complete 12 revolutions in a shorter period of time. This was not impossible. Zhuo Mo was already skilled in controlling Ling power, but shortening the preparation time would dramatically increase the burden on his Ling channels. Zhuo Mo had to increase his level of body cultivation, he had to in order to tolerate the greater load, and enable this killing move to have practical value. Otherwise, such a strong killing move would be greatly discounted by having an overly lengthy preparation time. Luckily, he was in the middle of a period of rapid improvement. As long as he did not slack off, after cultivating for a while longer, his body should be able to tolerate him using this killing move. Of course, this also meant that other than going forward step by step, he did not have any other methods. In the camp, howls would occasionally be heard from the sword formation. Over the last few days, people had gradually gotten used to them. Every person that went into the sword formation would shout and yell like so, but once they crawled out of the sword formation, they would immediately enter seclusion. Up until now, the remaining people that had not entered the sword formation did not even know how scary the inside was. They only knew it was very scary, very very scary. But they also knew there were many benefits. Compared to those Xiuzhe who felt a mix of terror and anticipation, Zhuo Mo did not have any discomfort at all. He was already used to these howls. When he had carved the formations onto them, the howling that had started up under his hands was no less than the present ones. Suddenly, the beast service card at Zhuo Mo's waist suddenly shook. Zhuo Mo's mind moved, and he unconsciously stopped his actions. This was the first time the beast service card had done this. He hurriedly summoned the rainbow butterfly. The rainbow mark butterfly flew out, made a nimble turn and started to fly towards outside the camp. There was a situation. Suddenly thinking about how someone had been spying a few days ago, Zhuo Mo was extra cautious, and beckoned at Zone Ru's unit which was closest to him, indicating for them to follow. The three exchanged looks and hurriedly followed. Those that noticed this from far away all had admiring gazes. Zone Ru's little unit really had the best luck. Boss trusted them. Those with experience all knew that familiarizing their face with the boss was directly related to future benefits. However, even though Lil Miss was not at camp, no one dared to stop their cultivation without boss orders. Gong Sun Cha's eyes were red as he stared deathly at the enemy which seemed like a tide. He had already lost this match, but the other side did not have any intentions of stopping, pushing him into a little corner to proceed with the last massacre. It was not the first time he had encountered this kind of situation. Once he showed a weakness, what awaited him was retreat after retreat. The other was like a dog with a bone, biting on tightly. What followed after was fierce attacks. Any little crack would be hammered into large gaps in a very short period of time. Gong Sun Cha was already used to the other pursuing and beating him. However, he decided to give the other a little surprise this time. Zhuemo led the little team and followed tightly behind the rainbow-marked butterfly. He rarely used this third-grade Ling butterfly. From the grade, this was a very fine top of third grade, but all three of its spells were related to poison. Zhuemo rarely interacted with poison, so he never used this rainbow-marked butterfly unless he was feeding it. It was the first time that Zhuemo had encountered the beast service card actively giving a warning. Zhuemo was very curious. Lei Peng and the other two had similar ideas and formed a perimeter with Zhuemo in the middle. No matter what time, protecting boss was their first job. Compared to Zhuemo's curiosity, the three appeared as though they were facing a great enemy. The rainbow butterfly flew extremely quickly as though someone was attracting it. The mountain valley that Zhuemo had headed to was in the mountains near the water. The mountain valley curved through the mountains, and the mouth of the valley directly faced Stone Door Beach. The mountain valley was very deep. Zhuemo had not sent anyone to explore since they had only come here for rotten metal silver and did not plan on staying here for a long time. Right now, the amount of rotten metal silver billets on Zhuemo's hands formed a mountainous stack. He guessed that it was about time to depart from Stone Door Beach. Zhuemo decided to wait for the group to all go through the sword formation before they left Stone Door Beach. Even more, Zhuemo had set down formations at the important places. Even though it was not a large formation like the Sky Ring Moon Chime formation, on the desolate wood reef, but these small formations were not easy to overcome either. Zhuemo did not put any formations on Stone Door Beach. The camp was constructed on the patch of sand. The view was wide from there, and everything could be seen at a glance. After the spying incident last time, the guard by the water had become even heavier. Was there some worldly treasure that was attracting the rainbow-marked butterfly? Zhuemo felt that it was not possible. This had been the site of a sect before. If there had been some treasure, it would not have been left for him to find. Suspicious, he tightly followed behind the rainbow-marked butterfly. After twisting and turning, the mountain valley became much steeper, and the humidity from the plants and trees grew. The wariness on Lei Peng and the others' faces grew even heavier. Suddenly, the rainbow-marked butterfly at the front furiously started to flap its wings. In the blink of an eye, with it as the center, a very small whirlpool formed. What was going on? Zhuemo stopped moving, even more puzzled. There clearly was nothing in the surroundings. He suddenly thought of the specialty of the rainbow-marked butterfly, poison. Was there some poisonous object? His mind moved and let the rainbow-marked butterfly cast a spell on him. The rainbow-marked butterfly gently flapped its wings, and a five-colored light emerged from Zhuemo's body. Zhuemo's eyes were instantly covered in a layer of five-colored light. Zhuemo instantly jumped in fright. In front of his eyes, threads of black mist were being attracted by the rainbow-marked butterfly's whirlpool, and surged into the whirlpool. This was poison. Zhuemo suddenly realized and hurriedly pulled back the three people beside him. If it wasn't for the rainbow pupils, he wouldn't have been able to find this kind of poison. Even though he did not know how poisonous it was, Zhuemo couldn't help but feel fear. A tasteless, colorless, and undetectable poison was more than scary enough. Even more, with the rainbow pupils, the threads of black mist made Zhuemo's hairs stand on end. Was there some terrifying poisonous organism nearby? That wasn't right. If there was something so poisonous, Xia Shan and the others who had lived here before should have already been turned to a pile of bones. The joy the rainbow-marked butterfly passed on to Zhuemo did not make him happy, but made him felt as though he had fell into ice, his entire body went cold. He had recalled the other spell of the rainbow-marked butterfly, poison change. The rainbow-marked butterfly could absorb all kinds of poisons to transform. The happier it was, the more deadly this poison was. Poison was something the great majority of Xiuzha were wary of. Some great poisons could even directly kill a Jindan. They were extremely strange. Some poisons could be merged with the Ling energy in the air, and could not be detected. Some poisons could pass through Ling shields. There were all kinds of weird and wondrous poisons. Without a doubt, this one was an extremely terrifying poison. Someone was scheming against them. No matter how stupid he was, Xuemo instantly realized it. Other than fear, killing intent uncontrollably rose. The three people besides Xuemo could not see the deadly poison in the air, but were sensitive enough to catch the killing intent that spilled out of their boss. Their hearts shook. Xuemo did not speak, and made a hand movement. After watching Lei Peng and the others work together for so long, he knew some of the simpler hand movements. Then, he started to fly up along the walls of the valley, using the rainbow-marked butterfly as the border. The other side of the boundary was filled with black threads of poison. Xuemo decided to make a circle to avoid the poison. He wanted to see who was scheming against them. Chapter 232, Gongsun Cha's insane war tactics. Pu Yao felt very good. He felt a certain kind of satisfaction each time he trampled Gongsun Cha, especially after he was defeated by Xuemo. That guy was getting more and more clever over time, and was not so easily tricked. The price he paid with each transaction was increasing. If the conditions were not what Xuemo wanted, it was basically impossible to persuade him. What made Pu Yao so irritated about Xuemo was that if he felt it was not good, he would just ignore the deal, and not be swayed no matter how Pu Yao provoked and willed. Many times, Pu Yao felt he was a mouse pulling Xuemo, the turtle, and had no other solution. Compared to the hard-headedness of Xuemo, Gongsun Cha was like a girl with her arms open, allowing him to do as he wished. Every time he was blocked off by Xuemo, Pu Yao would find pleasure from Gongsun Cha's body. This time, the battle situation was not different from any previous time. He had built an advantage very early on. What came after was more of a game of cat and mouse. Pu Yao had more than enough skill to be proud, especially in the area of directing battle. In his eyes, Gongsun Cha was just a slightly talented youth. This kind of talent was not enough for him to be shocked. Through the 1,000-Year War, he had seen too many young genius battle generals. This kind of talent, maybe he could only be the head of a little squad. It was a pity Xuemo was not interested in becoming a battle general. Pu Yao smacked his lips with regret. If that was possible, it would be so satisfying to abuse him. Pu Yao yearned for the scene of Xuemo being totally defeated by him. He had no interest in teaching Xuemo to become a battle general, but Xuemo clearly had no interest in playing with him, so facing Gongsun Cha became his only choice. It was so boring recently, Pu Yao sighed inside. He propped up his chin, his bloody pupil filled with an empty loneliness. After spending thousands of years in the Yao Forging Tower, his soul had been seriously damaged. Cultivation was not very useful to him at present. Previously, the secret method that he had been placing his hopes on did not bring the benefits that he had imagined. Right now, he could only pin his hopes onto Xuemo. But that hope looked so infinitesimally small. Maybe, very soon, he would dissipate like smoke. He smiled. He thought of the gravestone, and the loneliness in his eye decreased. When he swept across the battleground from the corner of his eye, he couldn't help but still. An ambush? A middle-sized troop of little edge mantis mo suddenly appeared at the side of his main army. Pu Yao knew a great deal about any kind of Yamo. Little edge mantis mo was not an exception. Little edge mantis mo was a low-level mo, the same level as white scaled attendants. However, its offensive power was 3 times that of a white scaled attendant. In low-level MO, the offensive power of Little Edge Mantis MO was able to rank 3rd. Most Mantis MO lived in the forests. They were natural blade wielders in the forest. After their intelligence was awakened, the pair of blade-like raptorial forelegs would detach, and become their best MO blades. At the same time, their instincts would also wake. Compared to those high-level Mantis MO, Little Edge Mantis MO was one of the lowest Mantis MO, but even so, their strong offense was enough for them to be famed among low-level MO. However, compared to their powerful offense and Grand Blade MO skills, their defensive power was pitifully low. The thin MO armor on their bodies was like paper, and almost could not stop any attack. This was also the weakness of almost all the Mantis MO due to the characteristic of the Little Edge Mantis MO, they were frequently used to fill battle technique units, not main attack units. Gong Sun Cha had actually used an ambush of a troop of Little Edge Mantis MO, and there was a lot of them. There was no time for him to think more. The black blade lights were like a tide crashing against the shore, layer building upon layer. The entire troop was like a burning hot blade easily slicing through butter. Little Edge Mantis MO's attack power that was beyond its power level was completely shown at this time. Pu Yao's army was cut apart at the waist. This group of Little Edge Mantis MO was also damaged, with not even half remaining. The troops that had been pushed to the corner of the battlefield attacked at the same time, like a spring that had been compressed to the limit and exploded with all its power. The troop formation changed from an orb formation to a column formation. The two troops attacking from the left and right towards the two sides of Pu Yao's forces, a furious counterattack. Pu Yao saw the sudden change in the battle but was not panicked. The other's counterattack was sharp and furious, but it was just the last vestiges of strength. He did not hesitate in pressing his forces forward. The perimeter did not attack, but stuck to the enemy, keeping a mid-range distance. He furiously calculated inside. He was waiting for the other to run out of power. Once the other was fully expended, it would be time for him to counterattack. The middle of his forces had already prepared. The following attack would be like lightning and quickly destroy the enemy. He believed that the other's troops would soon collapse. This had already happened multiple times previously. He did not worry at all about the remainder of the troop of Little Edge Mantis MO. The fragile defense of the Little Edge Mantis MO meant that they only had one chance to attack in such a crowded battlefield. No matter how high their attack strength was, they would quickly be killed. The two troops that had broken through towards his flanks, which were guarded by his troops, so they had no chance of escape. Pu Yao smiled coldly inside. Gong Sun Cha's commander definitely would be in one of the troops. In the wargame, a loss would only be set when the highest-ranking general was killed. Gong Sun Cha's highest commander definitely was hiding in one of the two troops that had tried to break away. Yet suddenly, something shocking happened. The Little Edge Mantis MO, of which half had been just killed, divided into two little groups that charged straight into the back of Pu Yao's forces. What was he doing? Pu Yao was slightly puzzled. Two little groups, each group had less than 20 people. This kind of Little Edge Mantis MO troop basically had no use. Little Edge Mantis MO troops were frequently used to ambush, but their fragile defense determined their extremely short lifespans on the battlefield. If the other's formation was dense, in order to complete the breakthrough, there needed to be a certain number. The reason that the group of Little Edge Mantis MO had been able to so easily cut through his forces had been due to how thick the troop had been. It was like a blade made from ice. It might be sharp, but it would quickly melt. Such a small troop, other than causing some fatalities, they basically could not affect the battlefield at all. Suddenly, a blinding light suddenly lit up at the head of the Little Edge Mantis MO troop at the very front. That was not right. Those were not Little Edge Mantis MO. Pu Yao's bloody pupil widened, his face full of disbelief. Boom boom boom. A string of powerful explosions. A gigantic gap appeared in Pu Yao's forces in the back half that had been cut away. This light. Pu Yao recognized it. Balloon Fish Mo's suicide detonation. Pu Yao instantly realized what had happened. Those two groups hadn't been Little Edge Mantis MO at all, but were all balloon fish, that used illusions, water mist illusions. That was correct. If it was him, he would also have chosen water mist illusions. The illusions that were made up of countless threads of water mist would tightly wrap around the person it was cast on. Most importantly, the water mists could provide rich moisture to the balloon fish mo. Balloon fish mo was something no one willingly provoked. They had hundreds of little sacs on their bodies. Those sacs contained the water element power that they absorbed from the endless ocean. If they encountered an enemy, these pure water element power would become their weapon to attack their enemies. No one dared to provoke them, not because they were strong, but due to their suicide detonation. This was the last move of the balloon fish mo to kill themselves and their enemies. The suicide detonation of the balloon fish mo was extremely terrifying. Even mo of higher levels would not be able to easily deal with it. Adding on that their intelligence was not very high, and they were not afraid of death, if they were provoked, what waited was serious damage to both sides. But Pu Yao's reaction was a beat too slow. The second group of balloon fish mo burrowed into the hole that had just been carved out by the explosions. Another fierce string of explosions. Pu Yao's expression was extremely bad. His rear forces had been very dense. The suicide detonation of the two groups of balloon fish mo instantly increased his losses greatly. However, he released a small breath inside. The battlefield this time only had some small-sized ponds. There would not be high numbers of balloon fish mo. Gongsun Cha should not have any more balloon fish mo wait. Pu Yao's face changed again. He suddenly realized that he had missed an important question. The suicide detonation of the balloon fish mo was powerful, but it was rarely used because there was a rule in war chess. In the regulations of the war chess, the suicide detonation of the balloon fish mo was only possible under one condition. His eyes suddenly turned towards the two groups that were trying to break away. The two groups that should have been furiously trying to break through, in Pu Yao's eyes, looked somewhat loose. That was right. The bloody pupil suddenly shrunk, Pu Yao's gaze was sharp and fierce. Gongsun Cha's highest commander was not in these two groups, but his gaze landed on the remaining little edge mantis mo that was located at the rear of his forces. There. At this time, Pu Yao finally comprehended Gongsun Cha's intentions. The forces that had been forced to retreat back into the corner was bait. The ambush forces were the true attack force. This had been a trap, an extremely convincing trap. Just as Pu Yao realized that it was the suicide detonation of the balloon fish mo, he could not react in time. No one had used this kind of tactic before. In war chess, the setup for the balloon fish mo had been they would only agree to detonate only under the direct orders of the highest commander. In the past, the balloon fish mo had always acted as the last barrier in front of the highest commander. Gongsun Cha's intention had not been to break away, but to kill Pu Yao's highest commander. For some unknown reason, Pu Yao felt a burst of coldness rise into his heart. The entire battlefield, all the forces, they were all sacrifices. No, they were all cannon fodder. The two troops needed to attract the attention of the front forces, so they had to get the other to move closer, and fight for time for their own middle forces. What waited for these two groups was only complete fatalities. As to the ambushers, there was only one outcome, death. Even if Gongsun Cha managed to kill his highest commander, he could not charge out of such a thick encirclement. To not attract Pu Yao's attention, the personal guard was disguised as little edge mantis mo. There could not be many people, and the outcome was naturally fated. In other words, Gongsun Cha had never thought of winning this battle. He only had one thought, to die together. This madman. Pu Yao muttered, his eyes unfocused. Chapter 233, Bloody-horned great serpents. Mo suppressed the killing intent flooding his chest, silently flying along the walls of the valley like a thread of smoke. In his rainbow pupil's vision, the black and forbidding mist turned. It was already a patch of death. Even though the rainbow-mark butterfly was doing its best to absorb the poison, but the poisonous mist in the valley was too abundant and it did not make a difference. Lei Peng and the others could not see the poison, and did not understand. However, the three were not stupid. They instantly guessed that boss had found something. They were both wary and shocked. It was the first time they had seen boss full of killing intent. The wooden face without any expression, even his gaze, which did not seem to change, but the killing intent that occasionally flashed past made even the air around him solidify. Boss did not make a sound as he flew at quick speed, making them unconsciously think of Ma Fan. However, compared to Ma Fan, who disguised himself as harmless and unnoticeable, the boss may be silent, but he was like a black sword that could absorb light. Under concealment, each body part was an edge. At the other end of the mountain valley, Third Kong looked with fear at the black gourd far away, and couldn't help but ask, "Is this going to work?" The black gourd was entirely glossy black, the mouth of the gourd open. Second Kong stared at the black gourd and was slightly smug, but in the deepest part of his eyes, there was a hint of terror. "Don't worry. Wind will rise in this valley every night. This wind is very strange, it will only blow along the valley, but not outside it. This 6-poison black gourd was hard to forge. I spent a lot getting it out of Shortyhoo's hands." He immediately said, "When we get revenge for Big Brother, we'll leave here immediately." "Where?" Third Kong asked. "We'll discuss after we leave here. This poison is extremely strange, colorless and odorless. If one is poisoned, it is hard to detect at the beginning, yet nothing can save them." Second Kong was slightly regretful. This 6-poison black gourd is powerful, but it can only be used once. Third Kong nodded in response and said with fury, "Venerable Chi is too dishonorable. We three had put our lives on the line for him for so long. Big Brother's bones haven't even cooled, yet he actually does not want to get revenge for Big Brother." Exactly. A thread of hate came into Second Kong's eyes. "It's a pity that there is just one 6-poison black gourd. Otherwise, I definitely will also let him have a taste." His eyelids suddenly jumped, his expression changing. "Careful." His suddenly jumped up. A flying sword silently brushed past his waist. His body suddenly lit up, a set of silver Ling armor appearing. Third Kong was instantly shocked, and then flashed towards the side. Light flashed over his body, and a red Ling armor covered him. 4 figures silently appeared, surrounding the two. They had been surrounded. The two people's hearts instantly sank. Lei Peng and the other two had not previously understood the situation, but when they saw the two people and the black gourd, they instantly understood. Zuo was very dissatisfied with the sword strike he had used in ambush. However, he didn't have any good methods. When he had been in Wukong Mountain, he was only in Zhuji, Li Water Sword Scripture, had been enough for him. However, in Little Mountain Jia, where only Ningmai remained, the power of Li Water Sword Scripture was somewhat unacceptable. He lacked an ambush move. Zuo knew that. He started to examine the two people. The style of the silver Ling armor was very unique. It was made of thousands of fingernail-sized silver scales. A dark and cold serpent could be seen coiling inside and moving freely. Having managed to block Zuo's strike, the Ling armor was unharmed. It could be seen how strong it was. The Ling armor of the other person was unordinary as well. Entirely deep red, it was possible to smell the tang of blood from far away. Zuo was slightly shocked. This Ling armor had been forged with a rare blood method. In Zuo's eyes, however, this Ling armor was a half-failure. If it was properly made, it definitely would not have such a heavy odor of blood. But the majority of his attention was on the black gourd not far away. In the vision of the rainbow pupils, the black mist was continuously flowing out of this gourd. This black gourd was extraordinary. Zuo did not hesitate despite his shock, shouting, "Kill!" Lei Peng and the others instantly attacked. Lei Peng's Abyss Ghost Saber Scripture, Zong Ru's Sky Wave Fist Scripture, and Nian Lu's, Lotus Sword Scripture, were all cast. The three had worked together for a long time, and cooperated very well. In the camp, they were one of the strongest teams. Second Kong and Third Kong reacted rapidly. Second Kong's hands cast a spell. A circle of light appeared beside the two. At the same time, Third Kong flicked his finger, and a dot of light perfectly landed in the circle of light. The circle of light brightened, and exploded. Lei Peng's saber energy, Zhong Ru's fist energy, and Nian Lu's sword energy instantly shattered when they encountered the spreading light. The broken energies that had not lost all their momentum headed at them like a wave. These people were prickly. Zuemo didn't dare to slack off, his right hand coming together and drawing in the air. With a light hiss, countless electrical energies suddenly light up, and gathered at the air at Zuemo's fingertips like numerous silver snakes. A goose-sized lightning bomb formed, its body flashing with a slightly red light. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. The faces of Second Kong and Third Kong suddenly changed. Hard lightning. It was actually hard lightning. Even Lei Peng and the others couldn't help but inhale sharply, their faces shocked and fearful as they stared at the little lightning ball at Zuemo's fingertips. Hard lightning. Lei Peng and the others had never seen boss fight before. In their eyes, the existence of this boss was far too weak. Most of the time, boss usually took the role of the quartermaster, which caused Lei Peng and the others to be less afraid of Zuemo than they were of Gongsun Cha. Seeing boss show such an amazing hand at this moment, the shock of Lei Peng and the others could be imagined. The one most composed of the three was probably Zhong Ru, because he had personally saw boss use Sky Glass Fist. However, at this time, he also could not keep his composure. Hard lightning was not commonly seen, but there were occasionally people who used it. They would not pale because they saw hard lightning. What amazed them was the strength of control boss had over hard lightning. They could not even feel the unique presence of hard lightning, the destructive, extremely young and powerful presence. This meant one thing. Boss control of the hard lightning was amazing high. Xiuzha deeply loved the power of hard lightning, but accordingly, the difficulty of using it was to a degree that most could only look with yearning. This little lightning bomb had none of the presence of hard lightning, but no one doubted its power. Second Kong and Third Kong knew its power and didn't dare to underestimate it. Second Kong reached and slapped his Ling armor, a large serpent flying out of the silver Ling armor, growing in the air. In an instantly, this large serpent had expanded to 10 zhang long, its body as thick as a water barrel, inspiring fear in those who looked upon it. Third Kong started chanting at the same time, reaching out and pointing at the big serpent. A bloody light flew from his fingertip, and entered the body of the big serpent. The big serpent flickered out with its forked tongue, a pained expression floating into its icy eyes. 2 bumps suddenly appeared on its forehead, the bumps quickly growing as though something was going to grow out. Pew! 2 fresh coral red horns pierced through the bumps and grew out. Hiss! The pain in the big serpent's eyes retreated, the icy snake pupils tightly looking at Zuemo's eyes did not move as though he had not seen the enormous bloody horned serpent. He carefully controlled the lightning bomb on his fingertip. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning was one of the strongest killing moves in his arsenal. Zuemo had spent a lot of effort on it. Pu Yao had not been sparse in his teachings. Zuemo had managed to make some variations on this one move of Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. This lightning bomb was one of them. There were more variations, but the difficulty of controlling hard lightning did not decrease in the slightest. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning was not like the other kinds of hard lightning Xiuzha used. The hard lightning this move used was the hard lightning that existed naturally in the world. The power to manipulate the power of the world, this was the core of Little Thousand Leaf Hands. This also meant that Zuemo needed to be extremely attentive with his control. His consciousness was still not large enough, there would be a clear time where his lightning bomb would form. If his consciousness was large enough, he could take in all the hard lightning from a 100 li radius area. But right now, the area he could control was only 20 zhang in radius. Finished. The last thread of hard lightning was absorbed into the lightning bomb. Zuo did not hesitate and flicked his finger. The lightning bomb turned into a burning stream of light tinted with red as it charged at the two people. Nothing could compare to the speed of lightning. The lightning bomb reached the two people just after it left Zuo's hands. The bloody horned serpent saw that he could not move to their aid in time, so an unexpected scene occurred. The lightning bomb flew to a distance 3 zhang from the two people, and could not move in any further. The swirling lightning bomb was forcefully blocked by an invisible wall. The hearts of Lei Peng and the others shook. A space shield. 5th grade. This bloody horn great serpent was actually a 5th grade Ling beast. How was it possible? 5th grade Ling beasts definitely were not something a Ningmai could deal with, but at the same time, a 5th grade Ling beast was not something a Ningmai could control. But what was happening in front of them was not an illusion. The invisible wall that stopped the lightning bomb was a space shield that only 5th grade Ling beasts could have. The space surrounding any 5th grade Ling beast would naturally form an invisible defensive area, like it was a wall of energy, which people called a space shield. This was a space shield. Zuo also recognized it was a space shield. He didn't have time to think further, the spell on his hands changing with the flow. Pia. Like an egg being cracked, the lightning bomb instantly shattered. Boom. The compressed hard lightning inside the lightning ball suddenly exploded like an ancient Yao beast waking up from its dream. A destructive presence suddenly expanded. In an instant, a thread of fear came into the icy snake eyes of the bloody horned serpent. Countless electrical snakes rampaged within the space shield. The thick body of the bloody horned serpent suddenly started to twist. Second Kong and third Kong were flicked into the air like bags of sand. Bastard! Beast! Second Kong and third Kong were full of anger and fear. They had never thought that the bloody horned serpent would not be under their control. The two of them exchanged a look and did not hesitate in turning and fleeing. Lei Peng and the other two seemed to wake up from their dreams. They knew it was not the time for their minds to wander. If they were not careful, with this ferocious Ling beast in front of them, everyone would die here today. Sky Wave Fist. Abyss Beast Soul Consuming Saber. Lotus Flower Fall. 3 figures crossed as they charged at the bloody horned serpent. Zuo tightly followed the furiously twisting bloody horned serpent. Strangely, he did not feel any terror. There was a space shield over every part of the bloody horned serpent. The Yin fire bead could not penetrate the space shield, and be fully effective. Zuo's face was expressionless, his eyes as deep and serene as water, his 2 hands slowly rising. His slow movements, in this frantic battle, was abnormally attention-catching. Chapter 234, Fury and Killing Intent. Lei Peng and the others attacked at the same time. At this time, they felt the taste of what it was like for Boss Lightning Bomb to not be able to move forward. It was like there was an invisible ball of energy in front of them. The flying swords and sabers in their hands were forcibly blocked. Destructive Ling power flooded in, but there was no response, like mud cows entering the ocean. The 3 were very shocked. Before they were able to retreat, a force suddenly came. They were not able to control their bodies. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The barrel-thick body of the bloody horned great serpent twisted and turned. Like 3 sandbags, the 3 people were thrown about. Zuo did not raise his head. Every stray thought in his mind had flown away at this time. The arms that he had raised slightly wavered, the movement soft like the ethereal willow branches in the spring. Hiss. The bloody horned great serpent opened its bloody maw, revealing the arm thick fangs covered in saliva. A nasty odor spread everywhere. When the venomous saliva dripped on the ground it would create a bloom of smoke. The almond-yellow eyes of the snake were empty, so cold there was no warmth, only the most instinctive desire to kill. It stared at Zhuemo, the killing desire in its eyes became even heavier. Just having suffered from the lightning bomb, the bloody-horned great serpent was full of hate towards Zhuemo. Hiss hiss hiss. The snake tail covered in fine silver scales was like a quickly vibrating rattle, giving out a soul-shocking sound as it shot towards Zhuemo like an arrow. The space shield around the snake tail also vibrated at high speed. Everywhere it passed, the air was cut up into pieces. The souls of Lei Peng and the others who were still in the air almost left their bodies. They could only see the snake tail. They were only able to see a ball of shadow, a shattered figure like a school of fish made from many little fishes. All three of them were battle-hardened, yet an instinctive terror uncontrollably spread into every corner of their body. Even if Boss had a Ling shield, he definitely could not stop this attack. The attack of the bloody-horned great serpent was close to the peak of physical power. There were countless methods in the world, but no matter which kind of power, when they reached the peak, all paths ended up at the same place. The three felt as though they were in a glacier, the blood in their bodies freezing in an instant. If Boss died, all of them would not be able to survive. The Jinji on their bodies would restrict their souls instantly. Suppressing the soreness of his body, Zhongru forcefully bit his tongue. A thick tang spread in his mouth. Of the three, only he had a thread of energy. He had not wasted his training in this recent while. In blocking this kind of physical attack, Diana Xiao had a natural advantage. Ling power furiously circulated through his body, moving without regard for the consequences. He was like a piece of lead, suddenly dropping down. Bam! A figure shot out of the dirt. He suddenly appeared in front of Zhuemo, the scattered afterimages at the center of his vision. The frightening rattles did not have any effect on him now. His mind was empty, focused on one aim, no shock, no joy, no fear, no anger, carefree. A string of wooden Buddhist beads on his wrist slowly lit up, a warm and deep yellow light covering his entire body. Inside the light, Buddhist sounds rang, and countless flashing sutra characters swam. Pew! The snake tail forcefully whipped the golden light on Zhongru's body. The golden light instantly dimmed, and wavered uncertainly like a candle flame lingering in the wind. The bloody-horned great serpent felt as though it had whipped a burning piece of metal, and hissed painfully, the thick serpent body furiously twisting. Pain. Each bone was in pain, pain that reached the marrow. Pia pia pia. The wooden Buddhist beads on Zhongru's wrist simultaneously exploded into dust, the yellow light extinguishing. Zhongru uncontrollably spat out blood and fell backwards. Before he fell unconscious, he seemed to see two glass-like lights flash. Sky Glass Fist. 14 Revolution, Sky Glass Fist. The fists that appeared like glass were so detailed that every line could be seen, just the same as Zhuemo's fists. Fear finally slipped into the emotionless yellow eyes of the bloody-horned great serpent. Yet the two fists that were so detailed they looked like toys moved silently, but seemed to have a deadly attraction. It could not muster up a thought of dodging. Bam bam. The two fists hit its space shield. There was no earth-shattering sound. Its space shield, which had been so strong and never had been penetrated before, was like a bubble which had been gently poked. Impossible. This was impossible. For the first time, its body was exposed to the outside. Terror had not even spread through its heart when a nondescript little bead impacted its enormous body. The almond-yellow eyes became blank. A pale coldness furiously spread along its body with astonishing speed. Hiss. The bloody-horned great serpent made a sound as though it was being carved by a knife, yet the whale seemed to have been gripped and cut off by something else. It felt darkness flood it and drown it. Zhuemo's mind was ringing. He could only hear the sound of his heartbeat, his eyes a-blurred. Everything on the outside seemed so illusory, like they were shadows without any feeling of realism. Compared to the illusion of the outside, his body was extremely detailed in his vision. He was able to see the clearly defined channels of various sizes, the blood vessels which were like tree trunks, the strangely constructed muscles, and the Ling power spread through his marrow and tendons, and the earth energy that was repairing his body. Lei Peng and Nian Lu saw the remaining half-section of the bloody-horned great serpent, and couldn't help but gulp, their eyes full of disbelief. 5th grade. This was a 5th grade Ling beast. Boss was able to kill a 5th grade Ling beast. The bloody-horned great serpent had become an ice sculpture, motionless, its entire body was a pale white. Lei Peng and Nian Lu's eyes suddenly shrank. The two stared with terror at the horns of the bloody-horned great serpent. It was withering away. Withering away at a rate possible to be seen with the naked eye. Lei Peng did not know how many fights he had experienced, but the terror caused by the strange scene in front of him was uncontrollable, especially since it was a 5th grade Ling beast. He used all the energy in his body to turn his gaze away. He didn't dare to watch. It was a kind of pale white that was lifeless. It had a strange and abnormal powers. He was afraid he would lose the last of his courage. When his gaze moved to the other size, he instantly became alarmed. Boss. Boss was still maintaining his stance after the punch. A bad feeling suddenly rose. Lei Peng furiously flew towards Boss. After Lei Peng's shout, Nian Lu also woke up. When he saw that Boss was unmoving, his expression changed dramatically. Crash. Like a piece of wood, Suemo collapsed head first. The two flew towards Suemo. The Jinji on their bodies had not acted. The two felt slightly reassured. That meant that Boss was not fatally wounded. They could not attend to the bloody-horned great serpent that was withering. One of them grabbed Suemo and the other grabbed Zhong Ru before they flew quickly towards the camp. The two didn't dare to go through the valley. That black gourd had not looked as though it was a harmless object. The two of them were filled with fear. Who could have thought that Tu Ningmai could summon a 5th grade Ling beast? A 5th grade Ling beast and a 4th grade were just separated by 1 grade, but the difference between the two was a deep abyss that could not be crossed. The space shield was just one of the major differences. Ling beasts 5th grade and above were completely protected in the space shield. In reality, a space shield was just an area with Ling power, a Ling power area controlled by the Ling beast and had many abilities. 5th grade Ling beasts were existences that only Jindan could touch. Overtaking their fear was a furiously burning anger, one that burned to every corner of their hearts. When Gongsun Cha returned to the camp, his face was as dark and heavy as water. He had lost the round. He had killed all the way to 50 paces from the commander of the enemy. Only 50 paces. He was extremely furious. If he only had another small troop of balloon fish Mo, he could pull the other into the ground with him. Gongsun Cha did not feel happy at all. It was his first time he made the mysterious person enter such a sorry state, and yet his plan had not succeeded. Even though he would lose every match, even though he should be used to defeat, but even so, he hated failure, had an unparalleled hatred, even if the other was stronger than him, more powerful than him. This battle definitely had given the mysterious person a shock, but so what? No matter how great the shock was, but it was a defeat. To him, there was no meaning. Damn it! Gongsun Cha appeared in the camp with a dark face, and the atmosphere at the camp instantly decreased. Everyone knew they could not provoke Lil Miss at this time. Just at this time, when Gongsun Cha saw Lei Peng and Nian Lu stumble back with Zhong Ru, he felt all the blood in his body freeze. Clang! He felt that his head was hammered and there was a period of blankness. When the camp saw the wounded boss and Zhong Ru, the camp exploded, everyone's expressions changing. Damn it! Wasn't this taking their lives as well? If boss died, everyone here would not survive. Everyone's heart was beating frantically, their complexions terrible. Who fucking did this? Kill them. Gongsun Cha woke up from his daze. He took a deep breath. The energy in his body that had just left came back in a flood. The blood which had just frozen seemed to have suddenly started burning, and rose up. A blush came onto his face as though the delicate face could drip blood. All of you, shut up. The anger in his head was like the eruption of a volcano, the burning blood turning to a shout. The tendons in his forehead, at the corner of his eyes, and his neck bulged like they were earthworms, extremely fierce when paired with his ruddy face. All the noise in the camp suddenly stopped, and entered a deathly sentence. Everyone was frightened by the fierce Lilth Mississippi. What happened? Gongsun Cha suppressed the boiling fury inside, his voice rough and controlled, like a black cloud covering everyone's hearts. The deliberate calm of Lil Miss made everyone's heart uncontrollably shudder. Lei Peng and Nian Lu hurriedly narrated everything that had happened in detail. When they heard that the two Xiuzhe had summoned a fifth-grade Ling beast, the camp was full of gasps, and when they heard that Boss had killed this fifth-grade bloody-horned great serpent, everyone gasped. In the deathly silent camp, everyone dazedly listened to Lei Peng's trembling voice as he described how the serpent turned a terrifying pale white and then broke down into dust. It's the Kong brothers under Venerable Qi's command. Of the same group as the guy who spied on us last time, Xia Shan opened. Boss isn't seriously harmed, Zhong Ru has much heavier wounds, and needs to rest for a while. His cultivation was the highest, his eyes the keenest and able to accurately judge the wounds. His words caused everyone to relax. Gongsun Cha's expression did not turn even the slightest bit better. He generally understood the situation of the rainbow-marked butterfly. If Shixiang really met an unexpected occurrence, then he himself. He fisted his hands, unaware that his fingernails had cut into his flesh. He definitely would not forgive himself. He raised his head, his eyes bloodshot. He relaxed his fist and the fingernails came out of the flesh. Organize and depart. Chapter 235, The Butcher's three-section wave killing charge. Sui Mo laid on the ground, the three golden armor guards by his side. His body was like a sponge, continuously absorbing earth energy from the ground. 14 revolutions of Ling power was over his body's limit. The terrifying Ling power had almost destroyed his arms. The uncontrolled Ling power traveled everywhere inside his body. The earth energy was like paramedics, trying their best to repair Zhuo Mo's body. Destruction, repair, destruction again, repair again. Zhuo Mo's body was like a battlefield, the ferocity of battle almost unimaginable. His limbs occasionally convulsed, which looked extremely strange. No one noticed that as his body was repeatedly damaged, the impurities in his flesh and blood would be tempered immediately. The earth energy that came after was like glue that was full of life, reconstructing the broken flesh. This was just the start. The golden crow fire was also rampaging. When it was completely free from suppression, it silently spread, merging with the Ling power and started a new round of damage of even greater magnitude. The five-element glass bead detected danger, and automatically turned, absorbing Ling power from the surroundings. At the same time, threads of pure five-element base source were released. They mixed with the earth energy, and repaired Zhuo Mo's body. The MO matrix on Zhuo Mo's body flickered on and off. The three golden armor guards by his side did not move. They were like statues, standing with their swords, motionless. Suddenly, Zhuo Mo's frozen and wooden face started to boil like boiling porridge, appearing extremely frightening. The golden crow fire and the Ling power had entered his face, and started to rampage and destroy. The earth energy and five-element base source arrived at their tail, and the two sides started a new skirmish on his face. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's expression was heavy. The present situation's complexity was far beyond his predictions, and was outside of his limits to deal with. His blade-like narrow lips did not have any of the usual scorn and mockery, only a deep bitterness and helplessness. After he had escaped the Yao forging tower, his strength had started to slip away. Even though he had predicted it beforehand, but he had not thought that the power would slip away so quickly. His present power was not even a quarter of what it had been when he had first met Suemo. This bit of strength was not enough to support him, to choose another person to hold his soul. His expression was unparalleled in its ugliness, ferocity flashing through his eyes. The hatred in his heart had no place to vent. He could only try to think and recall if there was any spell or secret method that was suitable for Zuomo's present situation. Pew pew pew. Zuomo's face suddenly exploded, blood and gore flying. His face had been forcibly changed by someone before. There were many blood clots and flesh tumors below his skin. That was the true cause of his paralyzed and wooden face. The golden crow fire and Ling power mixed together into a destructive force that swept away these blood clots and tumors. The earth energy with the 5-element base source was like a loyal bodyguard. Everywhere it passed, the exposed flesh stopped bleeding, and new flesh grew at a rate visible to the naked eye. The same battle was happening on every corner of Zuomo's body. Flesh continuously exploded, and then regrew. Gradually, the blood scabs on Zuomo's body became increasingly thicker. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao was slightly panicked. A thought flashed through his head. When he recalled a previous situation on Wukong Mountains, he suddenly turned around his face, and started to swear at the gravestone. "What are you waiting for?" The gravestone shrouded in the black clouds suddenly sucked the surrounding black clouds into it. The black gravestone became even more deep and dark. The surface of the gravestone was black but was as shiny as a mirror. Suddenly, there seemed to be a shadow moving on the gravestone. Gradually, the shadow became clear on the gravestone. It seemed like the shadow of a person. The figure was very indistinct, and the features were not clear. As the figure appeared, a vast presence suddenly appeared. Pu Yao dazedly looked at the indistinct yet familiar figure on the gravestone. It was as though a body paralysis curse had been cast upon him. He was motionless. The mountain valley 20 li ahead is Venerable Qi's base. Xia Shan was very familiar and naturally knew because he had been in conflict with Venerable Qi for a long time. He was also full of fear. If something really had gone wrong with Boss, he would have died without an explanation. Gongsun Cha did not hesitate, and said darkly, "Kill." As his voice landed, the chisel-shaped attack formation of the moving group instantly changed. The two wings spread out like two gigantic claws that viciously pushed forward. Such a ruckus, the other side naturally was prepared. 7 Xiuzhe flew up and welcomed them. One of the people opened and inquired, "You, kill?" Gongsun Cha did not have the interest in chatting with the other and interrupted him. 3 little teams were like 3 bolts of lightning. Without a word, they leapt at the 7 enemies. The 7 Xiuzhe evidently had not expected that Gongsun Cha would not even give a greeting before starting the fight, and instantly panicked. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! One of the Xiuzhe had learned a spell similar to Sky Thunder Sound. When he shouted, it echoed through the mountains. The enemy had came brimming with killing intent. The 7 people quickly worked together in defense. This place was their base. If they could hold the other side back for a moment, their reinforcements would arrive. All of the Xiuzhe that could survive in Little Mountain Jie were old-timers experienced in fighting. Everyone knew what they had to do, and what they should not do. Form the formation. The leader shouted. The other 6 moved into position, their flying swords and talismans out. But right after, the expressions of the 7 changed. A little team from the other side charged at them with no signs of slowing down. The 3 people were like a little chisel, their flying swords in their hands pressed to the maximum, each spitting with long sword energies. The 3 sword energies crossed and merged, forming a terrifying sword energy 2 zhang wide, and 10 zhang long. Woo woo woo. The sound of the enormous sword energy tearing the air shook their souls. The 7 people had never expected the enemy to attack with such determination, without holding anything back. That was insane. While this kind of attack would be powerful, but it meant sacrificing any variation. If the enemy was able to dodge or bear it, these 3 people would become calves waiting for slaughter. The 7 people unconsciously chose to dodge. It was unwise to face such a ferocious attack head-on. The 7 people that scattered did not realize the formation they had just formed instantly crumbled. The 3 people holding the gigantic sword energy were like an enormous and sharp sword, and could easily slice through the 7 people. The 2 other little teams that followed tightly after were like panthers that smelt blood, and silently followed. The 7 people that had been scattered were quickly divided into several groups. At this time, there were Xiuzhe continuously flying from the valley into the sky. Without Gongsun Cha needing to order, the teams on the 2 flanks started to attack. 3-section wave killing charge. With the little team as an unit, one wave charged forth after another as though there was no end. Each team would not linger in battle with each charge, and would leave the space for the team behind them. The 3-section wave killing charge was the first battle tactic that Gongsun Cha had learned. Up until now, it was the tactic he was most familiar with using. Compared to the past, it really had completely transformed, and was in a completely different style than Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge. Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge emphasized strength. It was like a heavy hammer 30,000 caddies heavy, using force to break technique. Gongsun Cha's 3-section wave killing charge emphasized transformations. It was especially skilled at dicing and dismembering the enemy. If Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge was a large hammer, Gongsun Cha's 3-section wave killing charge was like a little hammer and a little knife. He first used the knife to dismember the enemy, then used the little hammer to smash the pieces. In terms of brute power, his 3-section wave killing charge was far from Pu Yao's, and many places were raw and in need of perfecting, but in terms of efficiency, he had reached a certain standard. Several little teams continuously charged and killed among the ranks of the enemy like sharp daggers. Dismemberment, it was the work butchers were most skilled at. The former butcher coldly stared at the chaotic battlefield like he was looking at the corpse of a ling beast. The pathways for each slice was so clear in his eyes. He continued to pass down orders of minor adjustments through the same heart necklace. He had left the golden armor guards behind to protect Shixiao. The target of the same heart necklace had therefore switched to the little teams. Under Gongsun Cha's continuous adjustments, the entire team was like a fine-tuned machine, working faster and cooperating better. Compared to the scattering and looseness of the enemy, the Xiuzhe under his command maintained 3-people battle units. This caused them to always have the advantage of numbers in battle. After a while, Gongsun Cha stopped his adjustments, looking at the battlefield without a word. They had securely taken control of the battle. No matter if it was in terms of battle tactics or in strength, the Xiuzhe under his command held the advantage. This recent while had been a period of rapid growth for those Xiuzhe. With large supplies of Jingshi, the black processing meditation mat, and the engraved formations, each person's strength had received a certain degree of improvement. With the fury of almost having died without knowing, with Lil Miss Dark stare like a blade at their backs, every team went crazy. No one dared to keep anything back, and no one would do so. Xia Shan stood guard next to Gongsun Cha. As the person with the highest cultivation in the camp, he had been promoted to Lil Miss Bodyguard. If it had been in the past, for the life of him, he would not have believed that he would act as someone's bodyguard one day. Much less a person who was so young and only of Zhuji cultivation. However, he felt no discontent right now. Looking at the Xiuzhe to his side that was in control of the battlefield and the dazzling battle tactics, he sighed in admiration. This was skill. Skill that he definitely could not possess. In this chaotic time, individual power was so insignificant. This kind of skill meant true power. He looked with slight sympathy at the Xiuzhe who were working to resist on the battlefield. Xiuzha dropped frequently from the sky like kites who had their strings suddenly cut. Falling down from such a high elevation, unless it was a Diana Xiu skilled in body cultivation, other Xiuzha had no chance of survival. Venerable Qi raised his head to look at the sky, his face ashen. Just a few more days. He had not expected the other to have attacked them at their base at such a crucial time, and had not expected the other to be so powerful, and for his own subordinates to not even stand up to one attack. He recognized Xie Shan who was far away, but his gaze landed more on the young person standing next to Xie Shan. He knew that he had no chance of flipping the situation. "Let us surrender." Venerable Qi said 3 words that he didn't dare believe he said. Chapter 236, New Life. Surrender was a very normal matter in Little Mountain Jie. It was extremely hard to survive here. The result of fighting to the end was injuring both sides. Once a group's power was damaged, they would quickly be swallowed up by another group. Surrender became an implicit agreement between the factions in Little Mountain Jie. Those that did not understand how to surrender died quickly. Those that did not accept surrender also died quickly. Fight and surrender was the bread and butter of life. There were all kinds of people under Venerable Qi's command. In Little Mountain Jie, anything like loyalty was an illusion, no one would speak of it. Seeing the situation was not to their benefit, it was normal to him that the remaining people would surrender. Xie Shan suddenly went next to Gongsun Cha's ear and said something in a low voice. He was very joyful inside. He hadn't expected Venerable Qi to have something as good as this. Gongsun Cha's face was dark as he listened to the end without saying a word. Just at this time, the surrounding Xiuzha suddenly shifted restlessly. Noticing the shock and fear on everyone's eyes, Gongsun Cha raised his head to follow their gaze. His pupils suddenly shrunk, his dark face changing instantly. At some unknown time, the blue sky where the sun was shining brightly was filled with stars of various sizes. There was none of the brightness of the stars at night time, but every single one was extremely distinct. Even the blinding sunlight could not steal their light. Gongsun Cha felt a bone-piercing cold rise from the bottom of his feet. So strange. Why would stars appear in the daylight? Someone asked with puzzlement. Dunno. It's an apparition, probably not anything good. The person responding was full of worry. Everyone discussed in low voices. Even those Xiuzha who had surrendered and were tied up put their attention on the sky above their heads. Gongsun Cha did not say anything. His entire body felt cold, his limbs numb. It was like there was a heavy rock on his chest. Stars in daytime. He did not know what its appearance really meant, but he clearly remembered the first time he saw the stars in daytime in Sky Moon Jie, the nightmarish terror that made his bones tremble. Now, Little Mountain Jie had a repeat of stars in daytime. For some unknown reason, terror took over Gongsun Cha's body. He forced himself to lower his head, tearing his gaze away from the strange sky. After a while, his feelings calmed. Such a strange apparition definitely had nothing to do with him, why should he care? His attention landed back on the Xiuzha who had surrendered. The other Xiuzha had calmed down after than Gongsun Cha did. In their minds, even the strangest apparitions could not compare to the enormous change in Little Mountain Jie. Seeing Gongsun Cha's attention land back on the Xiuzha, Xie Shan hurriedly asked, what to do with these people? Kill them. Gongsun Cha's expression was calm as he lightly said. Kill all of them? Xie Shan was startled and asked instinctively. What? Gongsun Cha tilted his head to look at Xie Shan. Meeting Miss calm and slightly delicate gaze, Xie Shan's heart froze as he unconsciously avoided the gaze. Gongsun Cha's orders were loyally carried out. However, everyone's faces were slightly unnatural. They were shocked at Miss viciousness. Killing was extremely normal to them. Who hadn't killed? But massacring captives. But when they saw the calmness on Gongsun Cha's face, no one dared to speak. From beginning to end, Gongsun Cha personally watched as all the captives were killed, his eyes not even blinking. That was truly killing without blinking. Xia Shan's scalp felt numb. The faint and bashful smile on Lil Miss' face made him only have one thought: run. Suppressing the urge to turn and run, he was full of regret. Why had he showed off? Now, he was Lil Miss' personal body. Xia Shan's mouth felt bitter. Gongsun Cha clapped, the usual shy smile on his face. Everyone performed well today. No one made a sound. 5 teams stay and guard here. Everyone else, return to camp, now. He did not look at the corpses on the ground, turning and leaving. Clear Sky Sect was built on top of a snowy mountain. The Jie River roared past here as it entered Sky Water Jie. Among the white snow, tall towers stood, all of them built from second-grade snow crystals, extremely extravagant. 6,000 steps of ice stairs curved down the mountain. At the bottom end of the ice stairs was a crystal tablet made from a whole piece of snow crystal 7 jong tall. Written on it in cinnabar ink were 2 bright words: Clear Sky. At this time, Clear Sky Sect was a mess. What happened? I don't know. Old Forefather rang the warning bell. Then something major definitely happened. Stop wasting effort guessing. Let's move faster. We'll be punished if we are late. Disciples of various ages hurried to the big hall. In a short while, all the disciples had gathered, an entire patch of silent black. The sect leader and others were standing on the side. On the meditation mat at the very front was a Shouja whose hair was loose. He was wearing a snowy white robe, appearing about 40 or so. He was Clear Sky Old Forefather. The remaining and only Jin Dan of the Clear Sky sect. Clear Sky Old Forefather slowly started to speak, his voice clear. Just now, there was a worldly apparition. Stars in daytime, it is an inauspicious omen. Once the words came out, the crowd fell into a fervor. Many people had seen the stars in daytime just now, but no one had expected that even the Old Forefather was also alarmed. Send someone to investigate. Clear Sky Old Forefather said, his words absolute. Yes. The sect leader lowered his head in compliance. How are the recent supplies? Clear Sky Old Forefather asked, have the Ling grains from 100 Flower Alliance been delivered on schedule? The sect leader said respectfully, they have been delivered at the scheduled time. They hope that they can trade for some 3rd and 4th grade gold element materials, and have given extremely generous prices. They are willing to use a batch of 3rd and 4th grade talismans to trade. They are also willing to give Old Forefather a 6th grade begonia lantern in tribute. Clear Sky Old Forefather said in a deep voice, 100 Flower Alliance are skilled in entering the path through flowers. I have heard of their begonia lantern before, it's not a bad talisman. However, they want gold element materials, not wood element materials. Yes, this disciple does not understand, but they are truly purchasing gold element materials, the sect leader responded. Clear Sky Old Forefather thought and then said, send them a reply. Find a place inside the Jia to open a market and sell Ling grains. Get 100 Flower Alliance to send a group of show slaves. We will sell them to other people, and use Ling grains to purchase materials. Old Forefather is wise, the sect leader flattered. How many Ningmai disciples does our sect have? Old Forefather, there is 120 people. Too little. Clear Sky Old Forefather shook his head, go recruit a group of Ningmai and make them the outer hall. Their job is to take care of the affairs of the Jia. Yes. You shall personally go to Sky Water Jia. Clear Sky Old Forefather thought and then said, you are to do 2 things on this trip. The first matter is to see if there is a chance to meet and ally with other factions. The other is to buy a secret paradise to become another home for the sect. Disciples of the sect who show promise shall all go to the second home to cultivate. If our sect can have a few more Jin Dan, this little mountain Jia will become our backyard. This disciple understands. The sect leader was full of admiration. Old forefather was a visionary. If these matters could be accomplished, Clear Sky Sect's rule of Little Mountain Jie could not be shaken. The Ling energy of Little Mountain Jie had withered, but the mines had not been exhausted. It was more than enough for this one Jie to support Clear Sky Sect. Do not worry. I will stay in guard for you. Old forefather waved his hand. Zhuo Mo's vision was completely black, a rank odor continuously burrowing into his nose. Where was this? Had he died? That wasn't right, he hadn't died. After thinking for a while, he finally recalled fighting with the bloody horned great serpent. That big guy was truly strong. Fear still lingered. Impulsiveness was really a flaw. Why had he not managed to control himself? He made a deep self-reflection, and built his resolution that he would turn and run the next time he met something like this. It had seemed as though that he had killed the big guy, he thought back uncertainly. Many of the memories were blurry. After thinking for a while, he had not discovered anything. Itchiness occurred all over his body, pulling him from his memories. His attention came back to the question of where he was. He did not move, but controlled his consciousness. After he started practicing embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation, it had become his habit to always use the consciousness to investigate when he encountered something. Why was it like this? If he did not clearly know that this was his body, he definitely would not believe the body in front of him had any connection to him. It was full of vitality. Extremely dense vitality. The earth energy inside his body was so thick it was almost in liquid form, and flowed through every corner of his body. A blooming vitality, strong life force. Zhuo Mo could clearly feel that intoxicating feeling. What shocked him anymore was that he could not find any bit of familiarity with the body. Blood, flesh, sinew, bone. It was completely unfamiliar. It was like a brand new body, a new and perfect body. At the same time, he found the shell that was tightly covering his body. So strange, why would he be inside a shell? He reflexively pushed out. Pia, the shell cracked. Light streamed through the crack. It was slightly blinding. Fresh air flowed into the shell. Zhuo Mo felt it was unspeakable pleasurable. He greedily breathed in and pushed out. Bam! The shell instantly shattered into pieces and flew in all directions. Zhuo Mo stood naked in the air. The fresh air, the bright light, it made him feel like he was reborn. It really was comfortable. He could not help but breathe in deeply. At this time, he finally noticed the golden armor guard standing nearby with their swords. So he had came back to camp. His heart relaxed. Suddenly, he detected many people were flying near on the outside. It was Gongsun Shidi. He bent his head and scanned his bare body, instantly paling. Who took off Ge's clothes? He hurriedly found a set of Ling armor inside the ring and rapidly put it on. Just as he finished dressing, the door opened with a bang. Gongsun Cha rushed in with a group of people. Gongsun Cha narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Zhuo Mo stilled, his heart discontent. Shidi, you don't even recognize me. Gongsun Cha's expression froze on his face. The other people also had strange expressions like they had seen a ghost. The response from everyone made Zhuo Mo realize something. He unconsciously reached to touch his face. It was like his hand had been bitten by a snake, shrinking back lightning fast. His expression changed dramatically. This feeling was not right. Without another word, his hand flipped, and a ball of mist floated at the center of his palm, quickly turning to a smooth water mirror. Zhuo Mo was dumbstruck. Chapter 237, Reconstructing the body on the water mirror was an unfamiliar face. What the? Zhuo Mo jumped in fright, and then rubbed his face in curiosity before turning and inspecting in the mirror. After a long look, he made a final conclusion, all right, much better than before. His heart felt slightly reassured. A rock in his heart landed. This face was not handsome, but at least, his nose was a nose, his mouth was a mouth. Truthfully, this face was slightly average, almost immature. Bald head, thick brows, and thick lips. His body was also thicker than before. He looked like a nice and obedient child. Was this what he had really looked like originally? He was puzzled, and then saw a puzzled expression on the face in the water mirror. He felt slightly unnatural. He had become accustomed in the past years to that zombie face that could never have an expression, and used to hiding his thoughts under that zombie face. Now, his expressions had become more varied. The emotions inside naturally could be expressed on his face. He felt it was extremely strange. With curiosity and novelty, he stared at the unfamiliar yet vivid face in the water mirror. He decided to ask Pu Yao if this was his original appearance. This question was extremely important to him. Gong Sun Cha looked at Zhuo Mo's hand, and when he saw the several-dimensional rings, he released a breath. It really was Shi Xiang. Seeing Shi Xiang's appearance, he also knew that something had happened. At this time, Shi Xiang needed quiet. He made a silent gesture, and took everyone else to retreat out. Changing appearances was not a rare matter for Xiuzhe. Once everyone left, Zhuo entered the sea of consciousness and found Pu Yao. What happened? How come I look like this? Pu Yao glanced at him, and sneered, don't pretend in front of him. I had not expected the two of you to team up and scheme against me. Team up? Scheme? Zhuo was confused. I do admire you. You really have guts. Reconstructing the body, even those great Mo may not dare to try. You really have the guts. I had underestimated you before. Reconstruct the body. Zhuo Mo's confusion grew. I had found it strange before why you would so easily agree to the drawing of earth energy so easily. Pu Yao narrowed his bloody pupil, speaking to himself, I should have thought of this earlier. How could you not know that my injuries needed earth energy? You were waiting for me here a long time ago. You are as cunning as you always were. Zhuo was able to hear that Pu Yao's last two sentences evidently were not directed at him. He was not dumb. Listening to Pu Yao's words, he got a general understanding. Pu Yao's, you, should be the gravestone. The more he listened, the colder his heart became. He suddenly recalled the, do as he asks. He had a feeling that Pu Yao's speculation was not unbased. Neither the Yao or the Steel were good people. But when he thought deeper, he quickly realized it. If it was not for this Yao and Steel, he would not have reached the level he was at now. He probably would not having even successfully entered Juji. It was like doing business. Each side had their own aims. Even the smallest of benefits would not drop down from the sky. As to risk, what business had no risk? I get the general gist of reconstructing the body, Zhuo directly asked, is this my original appearance? His words not having the effect he intended, shock flashed across Pu Yao's mind. Didn't this guy hate being used the most? However, he did not linger on this question. It would cause the opposite effect if he said too much. Of course not, Pu Yao's answer was very definite. After reconstruction of the body, all of your appearance would change. The greatest cause of danger in this kind of Mo skill is here. All the bone, blood and flesh of your body would be broken up, processed and then reformed, making up for your natural deficiencies, making a powerful body. Zhuo pointed at his face and said, in other words, this face now has no tincture of a connection with my previous one. Exactly. Pu Yao was slightly cheerful at the misfortune. Not just not having a connection at all, your entire body has been broken, all the remaining traces have completely been destroyed. In other words, the clues from before are gone now. Zhuo stilled. You had 3 clues in your hands. Changing features and erasing the mind would leave behind two clues, one was on your face, the other is on your spirit. There is one more, the 5-element glass bead in your body. Oh, you only have two clues now. Zhuo Mo's expression was very strange, completely different than what Pu Yao had expected. He couldn't help but ask, are you not unhappy that you have one less clue? I'm alright. Zhuo Mo's tone was slightly complicated. He shrugged his shoulders. At least, I'm alive. This business is not unprofitable since I kept my little life. Pu Yao was speechless. What are the benefits of this body? Zhuo Mo quickly came out of his emotions and asked with anticipation. Having heard the scarce words of Pu Yao, it seemed the new body was very powerful. Pu Yao's expression froze. He could not suppress it any longer, furiously shouting, I didn't do this, it's none of my business, before turning and leaving. Zhuo Mo stilled, and then roared with laughter. He felt good about getting one over Pu Yao, the lingering depression in his heart sweeping away. Leaving the sea of consciousness in a good mood, he suddenly thought of Zhong Ru. He remembered that Zhong Ru had fended off the last attack for him. If not for that shield, he would have been heavily injured. He hurriedly found Gongsun Shidi, and asked about Zhong Ru's injuries and then rushed over. Zhong Ru sat with his legs crossed, his face white as paper, his presence extremely low. Lei Peng and Nian Lu were worriedly sitting beside him. Seeing Zhuo Mo come, the two of them hurriedly stood up. How are the injuries? Zhuo Mo abruptly asked. Nian Lu grimaced, his channels were injured. It would take a period of time to recover. To heal channels, this is third-grade Spring Dew Dan, specifically for channel injuries. Oh, third-grade Primary Energy Dan, not bad for recovering energies. Third-grade Primary Replenishing Dan, restoring the body. Nian Lu and Lei Ping gaped at the pile of Ling Dan. After seeing Zhong Ru, Zhuo Mo remembered the rainbow-marked butterfly that he had forgotten in the mountain valley. He called for the rainbow-marked butterfly through the beast service card, but to his disappointment, the rainbow-marked butterfly did not reply. If the energy of the rainbow-marked butterfly was not still present, he would have assumed that the rainbow-marked butterfly had died of poison. Since the rainbow-marked butterfly was still alive, he felt slightly reassured. Without the use of rainbow pupil, the black poisonous mist inside the mountain valley was enough to take his little life. He instantly discarded the thought of going to inspect the mountain valley. He burrowed back into his room, and started to investigate his new body. There was a question that puzzled Gongsun Cha. The 5th-grade Ling beast was in the hands of the two Ningmai. It had to be said that 5th-grade Ling beasts were able to enter the ranks of high-level Ling beasts. They were not something that Ningmai could command. How could it not be a puzzle how one appeared in the hands of two Ningmai? He was extremely attentive, and called Nian Lu and Lei Peng over to ask for the details. It's the Kong brothers. Luckily, he had Xia Shan who was familiar with Venerable Qi's base. He explained. The Kong brothers had managed to discover a secret technique from somewhere. If the three work together, they can summon a 5th-grade bloody horned serpent. They were the strongest helpers of Venerable Qi. Supposedly, the secret technique they found was not complete. The 5th-grade Ling beast they summon is not truly 5th grade, and can only be considered a quasi-5th-grade beast. The reason that the bloody horned serpent escaped control might be related to us having killed Big Kong. Even Xia Shan would never have thought that his speculations perfectly matched what had actually happened. Gongsun Cha felt that it was plausible. To say of nothing else, the power of a 5th-grade Ling beast definitely was higher than 3 Ningmai Shizhe. If this secret technique did not have any flaw, no one would have survived. Suddenly, someone hurriedly ran in. Head. The subordinates usually called Gongsun Cha head, and Zhuo Mo boss. What is it? Gongsun Cha asked. He wondered inside, did something else happen? A female Xiu was floating in the river, the brothers pulled her out. Female Xiu. Gongsun Cha stilled. It took a long time for him to react. After leaving Wukong Mountain, he had not encountered female Xiu again. In cultivation, there was no difference between female and male. Many sects even took only female disciples. The only type of cultivation that had a difference was probably the Dhyana Xiu, which cultivated their bodies. Females loved beauty, liked their skin snowy white, and had no interest in bronzed skin and hard bones. Supposedly, Little Mountain Jie had female-only factions. "Let's go see," Gongsun Cha did not hesitate in saying. When Gongsun Cha hurried to the camp, he quickly saw this female Xiu. More accurately, it was a wounded female Xiu. "I say, she is just a bit too ugly." Gongsun Cha did not realize how malicious his words were as he said in shock. "Really?" Xia Shan agreed empathetically, nodding his head. The unconscious female Xiu was seriously injured, the hair flowing free, her entire body giving off a nasty smell. Her face was full of crusted scabies. She was dressed in a torn and white robe, not much different from a beggar. Her feet were bare, her legs patched in bruises. Suemo had hurried over when he heard the news. His expression was serious due to Pu Yao's words. "She's been infected with Yao poison." "Yao poison?" Suemo's expression became slightly ugly. "You mean that she was wounded by the Yao?" "Exactly." Pu Yao, who had felt that his status had become threatened lately, did not hold anything back anymore, not forgetting to show off at any time. "This is a very common Yao poison, made from green thorn vine. They used this thousands of years ago. I hadn't thought they would still use it." At the end, he did not forget to review like he usually did. Did they live 1,000 years more for nothing? Suemo did not pay attention to Pu Yao. He suddenly raised his head. Where did she float from? Xia Shan stilled and then ran to ask the Xiuzha who had discovered the female first. After a while, he pointed at a direction on the river. "Floated from there." Gongsun Cha also reacted at this time. The two of them exchanged a look. Sky Moon Jie. That direction, it was the direction of Sky Moon Jie. This female Xiu had escaped from Sky Moon Jie. The two of them were extremely shocked. Their present position was not far from the Jie River. However, this female Xiu was the first person that they had found who had escaped from Sky Moon Jie. Without a doubt, the Yao army had locked down the Jie River. It was not hard to accomplish. They only needed to send a troop to occupy Desolate Wood Reef, and then they could secure the Jie River. This female Xiu was very strong. Suemo and Gongsun Cha exchanged another look with the same idea, getting the other on their side. To say of nothing else, this female Xiu's power was not of a normal Ningmai to be able to break through the blockade. Even more, all of them came from Sky Moon Jie. This made the two people feel slightly closer to her. Having made a decision, Suemo asked Pu Yao, "How do you neutralize the poison?" Chapter 238, Sonic Lightning Walnut. How is it? Gongsun Cha looked into the room, and then sat next to Suemo. Suemo shook his head. "I don't know. She has been seriously wounded before, not just this once. It is a miracle that she is alive right now." He had some admiration for her. When he had inspected the female, he had been stunned by the dense layers of hidden wounds inside her body. Was this woman like Wei Xing Xixiang, and also a battle maniac? It would be better if she looked prettier. Gongsun Cha smacked his lips. Suemo was slightly surprised. "Do you want to find a female Xiu?" "No, that's not it," Gongsun Cha explained, his face serious. "To be easy on the eyes. Tell me, what's so good about women? Why does everyone like them?" Suemo recalled the paper crane female's illusory formation that made blood rise. "Xixiang, you don't know this?" Gongsun Cha looked in disbelief at Suemo. Gongsun Cha covered his forehead and sighed. He then adjusted his attitude to that of an experienced person, and began to lecture Zuemo in a heavy voice. Xixiang, I may not be as good as you in cultivation. But if we are talking about the understanding of women, this little brother has a little bit of skill. Zuemo's mind became alert. He hurriedly said, tell me. Women, the most important part is beauty, beauty like jade, voice like the wind, with a tantalizing fragrance that one cannot pull themselves away. Gongsun Cha's face was intoxicated, but he quickly said in a heavy voice, but, Xixiang, you have to remember, you should just look at women. My master said that you can only look at women, but cannot touch them. We shall just look at them. Oh, so it's like that, Zuemo nodded, still confused. It really is wonderful to meet someone from Sky Moon Jia. Gongsun Cha sighed, there is only the three of us. It's better to have one more person. Zuemo was silent as he thought of previous matters. After a while, he asked, where's Qing Shidi? Where else could he be? He's always at the beast pool. Soon, he will accomplish his goal and cultivate into a Ling beast. He, Gongsun Cha mocked. It's good as long as he likes it. It might have been the string of occurrences recently, but Zuemo had a much more open perspective on many matters. Gongsun Cha nodded. It would not be outrageous to say that their situation was a precarious one. They might have won a few victories, but these 100-something people could not rank up there in the entire little mountain Jia. What they were doing right now, was it not what they liked? The deepest impression he had after learning how to command was that he had wasted his days before. He suddenly thought of an urgent matter. Xixiang, where do you think this Yao army came from? Zuemo was stilled, struck silent by Gongsun Cha's question. He thought and said, probably Sky Water Jia, Little Mountain Jia only has 2 Jia rivers, they could only have come from Sky Water Jia. Gongsun Cha's handsome face was full of worry. But if they came from Sky Water Jia, would the Yao army have let go of Clear Sky sect? When we were at Desolate Wood Reef, they didn't even say a thing before attacking. That was right. If the Yao army really came into Little Mountain Jia from Sky Water Jia, any power that would have been guarding the Jia River would have been destroyed. Zuemo didn't believe that the Yao army would make an exception for Clear Sky sect. Maybe Clear Sky sect had captured the Jia River entrance after the Yao army passed. Zuemo thought of a possibility. I had asked Xia Shan and the others, but the Clear Sky sect has always guarded that place, Gongsun Cha said. Zuemo felt a wave of cold seep up from the bottom of his feet. Is there another entrance to Little Mountain Jia? I don't know. Gongsun Cha shook his head. This question was extremely important. Zuemo immediately went to find Pu Yao. Pu Yao said in a deep voice, the Yao army should have entered from a chaos rift. Chaos rift? What is that? Each Jia would have several entrances. The most frequently seen are the Jia rivers. But other than those passageways, there usually would be some very small rifts, these are chaos rifts. However, most Jia masters, after they have taken control of the Jia, would find these chaos rifts and seal them to prevent others from taking advantage of them. Pu Yao was very familiar with this kind of knowledge. Are there many chaos rifts? Zuemo's expression was slightly ugly. If it really was a chaos rift, then that meant the Yao army could appear at any time. I don't know, Pu Yao said, each Jia is different. However, there is one point. The reason that chaos rifts have the appellation of chaos is that the laws inside the rifts are chaotic and non-existent. The higher the level of cultivator, the greater the effect it has on them. Little Mountain Jia is one of the smallest kinds of Jia. If it really has a chaos rift, it probably could only allow Ningmai Shouja to pass through. Yaoma will be similarity constrained. Hearing this, Zuemo was completely certain the Yao army had entered Little Mountain Jia from a chaos rift. He had found it strange before that the Yao army's average cultivation had not been high despite the organization it showed. The individual strength had been comparable to Ningmai. So it was not that they did not want to send experts, but they could not send them. How do you find a chaos rift? Can we block it off? Suemo asked with fear in his voice. A danger that was known but could not be seen was the easiest ones to cause terror. The surroundings of a chaos rift will usually have some attributes. Due to chaos which is not divided into yin and yang, not into the 5 elements. There would not be any earth energy, nor ling power. Xiao, Yao, and Mo will all be suppressed under chaos. Oh, it would also be empty and barren. No beast can survive in the area around a chaos rift, there will be no plants or animals, nothing living, Pu Yao streamed on. At the end, he added, there are also some secret methods that can detect them, but I don't know them. Suemo left the sea of consciousness. He narrated what Pu Yao had said. Gongsun Cha was very calm. This answer was not far from his own speculations. He only asked a question, is the area around the chaos rift suitable for ambush? Theoretically, it is very suitable. Pu Yao responded of his own initiative. However, he could only speak to Suemo, but tell him to end the thought. Even the most exhausted lion is not one sheep can defeat. What he commands are the sheep of the sheep. Suemo was speechless. However, he still tactfully passed on Pu Yao's words. Gongsun Cha's expression was slightly ugly, but he also knew this was the truth. He was very clear about what the people under his command were like. Even though they had formed the beginnings of an army under his training, but it was far from being able to compete with a fully mature army like the Yao army. Suemo also had no solutions for this problem. However, this also increased the determination of the two people to quickly defeat Clear Sky Sect's blockade. That was the only ray of hope for survival. Is there any news of Yin Fiend grounds? Suemo asked. The power of the Yin fire bead was greater than he had imagined. Such a big monster as the bloody horned serpent had been turned to dust upon impact. It really was out of Suemo's expectations, and increased his desire to find Yin Fiend lands. The strength of 5th grade Ling beasts were on the same level as Jindan. Even though the bloody horned serpent was only semi-5th level, but a power that could kill it would have some effect on a Jindan. Gongsun Cha was also clear about the power of the Yin fire bead, and had been extremely attentive to this matter. He said, nothing yet, but I will focus on it. Right, after getting rid of Venerable Chi's bunch, we got something good. What's something good? Suemo's mind became alert as he asked. A maturing 4th grade sonic lightning walnut tree. The fruit is almost mature. Venerable Chi had been guarding it all this time, but it landed in our hands, Gongsun Cha smiled shyly. Sonic lightning walnut. 4th grade. Suemo's eyes widened as he gasped. Seeing Shixiang drooling, Gongsun Cha giggled, yes. Shixiang's expression was so vivid now. Gongsun Cha wanted to laugh. Suemo rushed into Venerable Chi's mountain cave. The place was heavily guarded at the moment. Gongsun Cha was also clear about the value of a 4th grade sonic lightning walnut. It was a treasure beyond any price. A stalk of a nondescript walnut tree twice the height of a person. The crown was filled with green fruits, the skin of which was covered in silver dots. There was no thick Ling energy, no blinding light. This tree looked extremely normal. It was hard for people to relate this tree to a 4th grade sonic lightning walnut tree. This Venerable Chi has some good eyesight. Normal people won't have recognized it. Suemo greedily stared at the sparkling green fruits on the tree. Now, it is all ours. Gongsun Cha did not have a good understanding of the value of the sonic lightning walnut. He only knew that this tree was somewhat rare and very expensive. Sui Shixiang always was bursting with interest towards anything that was rare and could be sold for a good price. He himself was also very happy. He knew better than anyone else the expenses that was spent on the training he had ordered. He felt it was a good beginning that he could create revenue for Shixiang. Having had a sweet taste, Gongsun Cha wondered if it was time to speed up the steps to create revenue. Pia, a mature fruit fell off the branch. Suemo hurriedly put out a hand, the fruit flying into his grasp. He gently brushed with his hand and the skin and flesh was taken off, revealing the silvery sparkling walnut on the inside. This was the famed sonic lightning walnut. Suomo's eyes was intoxicated as he pulled the sonic lightning walnut in front of him. This sonic lightning walnut was slightly smaller than a normal walnut, appearing to have been made of pure silver. It was extremely heavy, the abundant creasing on the surface released the occasional spark of lightning. Suomo's hand was covered in a thin layer of Ling power. Otherwise, he would be injured by the lightning of the sonic lightning walnut. So this is the sonic lightning walnut? It's pretty beautiful. Gongsun Cha crowded over. This can probably sell for a good price. Sell? In a reversal of his usual attitude, Suemo furiously shook his head. We aren't going to sell even one. This is something that you can't even buy if you had the Jingxia. His consciousness scanned the sparkling silvery sonic lightning walnut in his hand as he sighed inside. The sonic lightning walnut naturally contained abundant amounts of hard lightning. It was a natural talisman that could be used immediately. At present, Suemo was lacking high attack power moves. These sonic lightning walnuts had come at the perfect time. With his thrifty and prudent personality, he naturally was not so stupid as to use the sonic lightning walnuts directly. He also quickly discovered that, while the sonic lightning walnut contained abundant hard lightning, but the kernel inside the hard husk could contain even more hard lightning. If hard lightning was used to continuously temper it, the power of the sonic lightning walnut would continuously increase. For other people, it would not be easy to find hard lightning, but it was as simple for Suemo as raising his hand. Young Fiend Hard Lightning, a 4th grade hard lightning, was perfect for tempering the sonic lightning walnuts. Suemo looked at the branches drooping with green fruits, and the strong feeling of happiness made him dizzy. Mine! All mine! The cave echoed with the balderdash of a miser. Chapter 239, Yao visiting Wukong. Compared to the past Wukong mountain, if one went there now, weeds grew all over the mountain, the Ling fields were barren. Occasionally, little wild animals poked their heads out from the weeds. It is in this area. Listening to the report from her subordinate, Mu Shi stepped on the overgrown path as she walked up the mountain. Which sect used to possess this site? She asked. It is a sword-practicing sect called Wukong Sword Sect. The middle-aged man had clearly done large amounts of work, introducing in great detail. Wukong Sword Sect is one of the most accomplished sects of Sky Moon Jie. They became extremely famous in the last 2 years. At the beginning, they had 4 Jindan of unordinary power. Oh, such a little place, it is really abnormal to have 4 Jindan, Mu Shi said in surprise. Yan Feng sneered unconcernedly. Mu Shi ignored him, and said to the middle-aged man, continue. These 2 years, they have expanded extremely quickly. Presently, they have almost 10 Jindan in the sect. Surprise flashed through Mu Shi's eyes. Almost 10 Jindan. This time, surprise was also on Yan Feng's face. They were only the forward guard. Almost 10 Jindan would be enough to be of threat to them. He was arrogant, but having successfully came out of a Yao art house, he naturally was not stupid. Other than this, their second-generation disciples are extremely outstanding, dominating Sky Moon Jie. The eldest disciple Wei Xing entered Ningmai at 20, and his talent at the sword is even more astounding. Having already reached the step of sword essence manifestation. Second disciple Zuomo is extremely skilled in formations. Third disciple Luoli has also reached Ningmai, and created his own sword scripture, self-separation. A very strong sect. Mu Shi's expression changed. In the past years, the Yao had increased their understanding of the Xiuzhi. It would not be surprising for this information contained in the report to be referring to an intermediate-sized sect. But it really was astounding for it to be reported from a little sect in such a little and backwater Jie. Yan Feng also had a shocked expression. He had always been proud of his genius. He had been dealt a great blow by the news that someone had reached Ningmai when they were 20 years old, and had reached the level of sword essence manifestation. They walked to a lonely little wooden house. This little wooden house was extremely eye-catching. As they had walked up, weeds had covered everything. But the empty ground around this little wooden house was bare and had no weeds. Such an eye-catching and strange place naturally could not escape their eyes. Mu Shi stared at the little wooden house for a while, standing motionlessly at her spot. The other people saw that Mu Shi did not move, and did not dare to more either. Seeing the situation, Yan Feng snorted coldly, and did not hesitate to walk towards the wooden house. The middle-aged man couldn't help but look at Mu Shi with a questioning expression. Mu Shi waved her hand with a faint smile. When Yan Feng's right foot stepped onto the empty ground, his head rang, all the hairs on his body standing up on end. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. That normal-looking wooden house suddenly broke, everything in the surrounding space seemed to collapse, an invisible force seemed to pull him downwards, countless sharp and intimidating sword essences pushing at him from all directions. He paled, then his eyes turned bright red, flames erupting all over his body. He gathered all the energy in his body, and pulled his body out to retreat. As he left the empty ground, the frightening scene disappeared. The invisible force, the sword essences, they were like illusions. Yan Feng swallowed in terror, not daring to put away the flames on his body as he looked with fear at the lonely little wooden house. This is the site of cultivation for a very powerful sword Xiu. Mu Shi slowly walked beside him, and opened, every bit of the ground here has been permeated with sword essence for a long time. It is vicious and sharp, nothing can grow here. Each step that you take forward, the sword essence grows stronger. At the end, there is only two endings. One is that you are torn to pieces by the sword essences, the other is all the sword essences have been destroyed by you. Yan Feng's complexion was pale. Since they had entered Little Mountain Jia from the Chaos Rift, it had been smooth sailing, and he had not encountered any proper resistance, causing him to have a low opinion of Xiuzhe, assuming that the Xiuzhe were just so. Only now did he suddenly realize, to his shock, that the strong masters of the Xiuzhe were so terrifying. Yan Feng's unusual silence greatly satisfied Mu Shi. She did not do this just because of Yan Feng. She had discovered a mood of underestimating the enemy invading the ranks earlier. This was fatal to a vanguard that had entered the deep of the enemy. Her subordinates looked with shock at the barren ground and the wooden house. She turned, and saw the pride in her subordinates' eyes had faded greatly before she asked the middle-aged man expressionlessly, "Are there any potential targets?" The middle-aged man said respectfully, "From the time of the stars in daytime, the time that Darren had came to Wukong's sword sect should have been before Wukong's sword sect's expansion. Before their expansion, there were not many people in Wukong's sword sect. Since Darren had caused the stars in daytime, this Darren probably was seriously wounded. With that, it is unlikely that Darren had taken over a Jindan's body. What is more likely are the second-generation disciples." Mu Shi did not interrupt. After he finished, she thought and then asked, "Who do you feel is most suspicious?" "Wei Sheng." The middle-aged man did not hesitate. "Why?" "Wei Sheng is the most talented, and can give Darren the greatest aid." Mu Shi shook her head. "I do not think so. If you are wounded and have to hide in someone's body, what would you consider?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man became silent for a moment before saying, "In this subordinate's view, the first is safety, the second is to speedily recover." "You are not wrong," Mu Shi said, then continued, "Wei Sheng's talent is the greatest, and the primary target of the sect's attention. It is easy to slip up if one is not careful. Therefore, residing in his body is not a wise choice. If it was me, I would choose Mo or Luo Li. They are not as attention-catching as Wei Xing, yet they also received good support. It is also certain that the attention they receive is less than Wei Xing. No matter if the goal is either to control or to tempt, it is much easier. The middle-aged man was full of admiration. Darren is wise. Where is Wukong's sword sect now? Supposedly, they have already moved to Bright Wave Jia, the middle-aged man answered. He had an expression of difficulty while he spoke. With our strength, it is unlikely that we can take down Bright Wave Jia. Mu Shi was not angry, smiling and saying, Bright Wave Jia is at intermediate Jia. Of course, we cannot conquer it. Our mission has almost been completed. Take the information you have gathered, and our speculations to make a report. Just send it back. There will be people who will naturally take care of the rest. Yes. The middle-aged person said respectfully. Yan Feng's expression had recovered. When he heard Mu Shi's words, he was still somewhat discontent. Then what are we doing here? Us? Mu Shi smiled. After working for so long, it's time for a vacation. Yan Feng was speechless. Zhuo Mo's body was filled with strength. This new body gave him too many unfamiliar surprises and feelings. It progressed extremely rapidly in body cultivation. Without too much effort, he had entered the stage of 3 mountains. As he moved, he felt his entire body was filled by a bountiful power. It was an extremely pleasurable feeling. What surprised him the most was the Mo matrix Pu Yao had carved into his body had completely disappeared when his body had been reconstructed this time. However, for some unknown reason, there were some new formation-like patterns on his body. These patterns were not as complex or as strange as the Mo matrix appeared, but was filled with a kind of man-made formation beauty. However, Zhuo Mo was still uncertain as to whether these patterns were formations. They required time to study. Other than his body cultivation that reached 3 mountains, the other breakthrough was his abhina, which had not formed for a long time. His abhina was related to his eyes. This had not changed when he had changed into a new body. Ling Eye. The only ability of Ling Eye was to detect the flow of Ling energy. He was not able to use Ling Eye for a very long time at the moment, because his eyes would become extremely dry and sore. But even so, Ling Eye was a great surprise to him. Maybe other people would not care about Ling Eye, but for him, Ling Eye was perfect. It was a great boon to him to be able to see the flow of Ling energy when he studied formations. There were many explanations for the abhina. Diana Xiu thought that it was wisdom from Samadhi, the abhina was wisdom. Pu Yao scorned this explanation. He thought it was the awakening of the base source of power of the flesh. But there was a point that both sides were in a strange consensus on, an abhina would grow. However, no matter if it was Zhong Ru or Pu Yao, they did not know how to cultivate an abhina. Zhuo Mo was not in a rush. He still had the simplest and stupidest method, learning through familiarity. When he had the time, he would use the Ling Eye, and only stop when it was too sore to bear. The reconstruction of his body had given him improvement in all areas. Other than body cultivation and the abhina, the improvement in all other areas were extraordinary. The new Ling channels were even stronger, and grown wider by half of what they were before. The bones were like jade, strong as steel. The muscles were like metal, hardness concealed within the flexibility. Every time he inspected his new body, Zhuo Mo could not help but sigh. Strangely, he felt awe towards the gravestone. Such an astonishing method, it could be called uncanny craftsmanship, like stealing the sky and changing the sun. He could not think of what kind of person could have such ability. This ability completely destroyed all he knew. However, he put this awe deep into his heart. He cultivated without rest or food. Right now, he had such good conditions. If he wasted it, it would be so unprofitable. The talent that this new body had was something he could not imagine before. Just as Zuemo was furiously cultivating, Gongsun Cha took the group of Xiuzha and started a similarly furious expansion. In 3 months, Gongsun Cha took the group of Xiuzha and went through 4 hard battles. In the hardest battle, even Ma Fan and Xia Shan were wounded. Even Gongsun Cha was almost killed. But this battle had completely awoken the madness under Gongsun Cha's shy and delicate appearance. Just as everyone's wounds had healed, he took 15 battle units, chased for 800 li, conquered a faction, and captured 80 Xiuzha. After 4 fierce battles, the number of Xiuzha on Gongsun Cha's hands quickly grew to an unprecedented 450 people. With one step, they became the biggest power within 3,000 li. Mrs. Infamy quickly spread. The strong offensive power displayed by this faction of mysterious origins made people look. After a string of dazzling fights, everyone understood this troop was not a friendly one. In an area 3,000 li in diameter, all the scattered Xiuzha had been swept away by Gongsun Cha, and he did not leave behind one. In other words, in this enormous area, other than Gongsun Cha and the others, there was no one in any other place. However, after a succession of victories, Gongsun Cha's mood was extremely terrible because he heard a piece of news. Chapter 240, What was going on? Gongsun Cha found Zuemo and faithfully told him the news he had received. The further he listened, the uglier Zuemo's expression became. This Clear Sky sect is truly too evil. They want to use all of Little Mountain Jie to feed only them. Zuemo was extremely furious, but he quickly calmed down. We need to move faster. The longer it takes, the harder the days will get. When this outer hall of theirs truly stabilizes, they would have many fighters. If we want to charge out, it would be much harder. Gongsun Cha nodded his head heavily, a flash of anger in his eyes. Clear Sky Sect's actions was equal to farming the Xiuzha of Little Mountain Jie as though they were ling beasts. When it was time, they would be no different than those Xiu slaves. I have a solution, Zuemo said after some thought. What solution? Gongsun Cha asked hurriedly. They sell ling grains, we'll sell black processing meditation mats. Gongsun Cha was slightly puzzled and spoke. Wouldn't it be too much of a waste if we sell the black processing meditation mats to them? At that time, the price of Jingshi in Little Mountain Jie would inflate dramatically. Sell. Zuemo said hatefully, we won't just sell, we'll sell in large quantities. As long as the black processing meditation mats are sold, the noose on everyone's necks would not be so tight. If Clear Sky Sect cannot finish establishing the status quo, all of their past effort would be for nothing. When Clear Sky Sect discovers that it is us who ruined their business, they would definitely come to our doors. Wait at leisure while the enemy labors, this way, we can set a trap for them. A strong dragon does not suppress the local snakehead. On our territory, it isn't up to them how things are done. Gongsun Cha's eyes instantly lit up. The two of them discussed for a long time inside the room, dark snickers occasionally passing out of the room. Lei Peng, Xia Shan, and the others found to their surprise that Head's mood today was very good, the shadow on his face seemed to have been swept away. Usually, when Lil Miss mood was good, everyone had easier days. However, before they had time to be happy, they heard Lil Miss announce that, from today onward, training was multiplied. Wails rang out into the landscape. Fortunately, the Xiuzha who made it through the cruel battles were not resistant to harsh cultivation. Truthfully, what everyone wanted the most was access to that sword formation. Every Xiuzha that came out of the formation would go into seclusion. Up until now, several had comprehended sword essence after entering the sword formation. Something this good that went against the common knowledge was naturally very tempting to many. However, there were too many monks yet not enough porridge. The sword formation only allowed for one person to cultivate at a time. Gongsun Cha had a headache over the matter and could only use it as a part of the rewards for service. Seeing the busy camp, Gongsun Cha sighed. If there was more time, he would definitely have made a true elite force. It was a pity what they lacked the most was time. When they charged out of Little Mountain Jie, he would find Shixiao, and make a true troop. Having tasted what it was like to be a battle general, it would be really bland if he had to do something else. However, what was going to happen next really filled him with anticipation. After giving many matters to Gongsun Shidi, the amount of matters Suemo had to attend to made his scalp prickle. The crux of this plan was black processing meditation mats, and large amounts of them. It was not difficult to make black processing meditation mats, but the volume was too large. In the recent while, Suemo had used up all the spare time he had outside out of cultivation to make black processing meditation mats. The amount needed now was much higher, and he did not have an assistant. He needed to complete all of the work by himself. This clearly was not realistic. He decided to pick some Xiuzhe who had the basics of forging from the camp to help him. What surprised him was that there were more than 50 people of the 450 who knew the fundamentals of forging. Suemo only understood after he asked. These Xiuzhe mostly had no sect, and after they entered Ningmai, they naturally had good days. However, before they entered Ningmai, they were no different than any other low-level Xiuzhe. Basically, everyone had a skill. Ling farming, animal husbandry, forging, etc. Suemo and Gongsun Cha gaped at the variety. However, even though most of them had learned the basics and had spent longer on forging than Suemo had, but due to the lack of a systematic education, they had only done some very basic jobs. After Ningmai, they had not done much. There were two who were exceptions. One of them was called Ji Wei, the other Sun Bao. The two had made a living from forging before the change in Little Mountain Jie. Their skill in forging was much higher than Suemo. Suemo treasured the two of them when he found them. He even managed to take out the golden crow fire and allowed the two of them to absorb it. It was like the two of them had been hit with Jingshi from the sky, they were so happy they almost fainted. Golden crow fire. This was golden crow fire. The two had schemed and made countless efforts, but had never found a fire seed that could satisfy them. So when Suemo threw each of them a mini box and told them that a thread of golden crow fire was sealed inside, their hands shook so much they almost dropped the boxes. Other than happiness, the two deeply felt the importance Boss placed on them. It was not a joke. This was golden crow fire. 4th grade fire seed. The fire seed that any person in forging or dan-making dreamed about. Yet before the two of them were able to feel smug, they saw Suemo pick out 10 more people with the highest skill in forging, and give each of them a mini-box. Ji Wei and Sun Bao were dumbstruck, their expressions as though they had seen a ghost. It was not just them. When the 10 people had been picked out, they had been looking with admiration at the two. Now, they were holding the mini-box, a stunned expression on their faces, their minds completely blank. The remaining Xiuzhe were also completely stunned. The temperature of the room rose dramatically. Work hard. Suemo waved his hand like a show-off. Taking in everyone's gazes, it was like he had eaten ginseng fruit, his entire body unspeakably comfortable. There was no way around it, GE just has a lot of golden crow fire. This group of Xiuzhe that had been dissatisfied at having been transferred over to a new troop started to furiously work as though they had been shot with chicken blood. Their enthusiasm with work made Suemo jump in fright. They wouldn't die from working this hard, right? Suemo taught the formations of the black processing meditation mat to Ji Wei and Sun Bao. When Suemo finished teaching them, the two were motionless as though they were two pieces of rock. From then on, the two had truly been convinced. Suemo concentrated solely on his work. When he raised his head in rest, he noticed that a person was standing in the doorway. He gave a surprised expression, and stopped what he was doing. "You woke up?" asked Suemo. The other person was just standing there. He didn't know how long it had gone on. This female Xiu stood there woodenly as though she had not heard him speak. Had she become stupid due to her injuries? Suemo muttered inside. What are you called? He probed. The female Shio did not respond. Did your injuries really turn you stupid? Suemo rubbed his chin as he thought. He decided to try one more time. Are you hungry? The female Shio still did not react. Seeing the female Shio's face that was full of scabies, Suemo was suddenly filled with empathy. He remembered his past zombie face. When she had been unconscious, Suemo had checked. Her face did not have any disguise. The scabies on her face were caused by a certain kind of poison inside her body. Adding on the new and old inner wounds that could not be counted, Suemo felt it was a miracle she was still alive. After the last try had failed, Suemo had a bit of headache and could only give up. Do whatever you want. He didn't feel the other understood, but right now, he had too many things to do. Even though the creation of the black processing meditation mat had been basically given to other people, but he still had other work. Any complete plan was constructed of many conditions. He decided to do his own work. When he turned to leave, he heard footsteps behind him. This female Shio followed behind him without a word. Suemo instantly felt his temple start to hurt. Hey, there's no jingsha you can earn by following me. I don't have the time to play with you, go play by yourself. There really is no jingsha to be earned. I'm warning you, if you don't stay far away, I won't be polite to you. Suemo pretended to cast a spell. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the female Shio's movement, and his pupils suddenly expanded. The other had also raised a hand. A light flashed at her fingertip, the air in the surroundings suddenly became sticky. Motherfucker. Suemo's soul almost ran out of his body. He hurriedly released the Ling power in his hands, hurriedly saying, let's just talk, let's just talk. The female Shio still did not say a word, but followed Suemo, the light at her fingertip dissipating. As she lowered her arm, the air in the surroundings returned to normal. Such a powerful little girl. Pu Yao's shocked sigh sounded in Suemo's mind, but when Suemo heard it, it clearly had a hint of laughing at his misfortunes. Suemo had no solution. He basically could not communicate with this female Shio. As to attacking, when he thought of that terrifying light, Suemo's heart shook. The last bit of hope was destroyed. If you want to follow, then follow. At the end of his rope, Suemo muttered. Ha 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 ha. Pu Yao's roaring laughter, and the silence from the female Shio made Suemo suddenly feel that life was dark. The Shioja in the surrounding all looked with fear at the female Shio behind Suemo. The strength that the female Shio had just displayed made everyone jump. Suemo perceptively noticed that in these people's eyes, other than terror and fear, there was a hint of disgust. Suemo suddenly felt uncomfortable inside. But he also knew this was a normal response. When he had first seen the female Shio, he had also been frightened by the scabies on her face. He randomly picked out a black ore from the pile of material and summoned the golden crow fire before throwing the ore inside. The burning golden crow fire instantly melted the ore into a puddle of red metal liquid. Suemo's mind moved, and it appeared as there was an invisible force that pulled the metal liquid. The metal liquid slowly changed shape. The female Shio stared at the golden crow fire and metal liquid. After a while, a mask appeared on Suemo's hands. The black mask was very plain. There were no patterns or decorations. What was most strange was the ratio was slightly off, the right and left sides of the mask were not symmetrical. Suemo instantly felt slightly embarrassed. Oh, first time making a mask, my hand was raw. Oh, let's redo it. He was just going to remake one when a great force passed into his hands from the mask and then the mask flew into the hands of the female Shio. The female Shio put on the mask. Oh, let's remake that one, Suemo rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly. The right and left sides really were not symmetrical. Heavens! He had made such an elementary mistake. Looking at the strange looks from the subordinates in the surroundings, he wanted to find a hole in the ground and hide in it. This was a great embarrassment. The female Xiao did not say a word, and seemed to not have any intentions of taking off the mask. Seeing the situation, Zhuo Mo perceptively gave up on his plan of making another one. He tried to do his own work and found the female Xiao did not disturb him. She only stood there like a person made out of wood. Zhuo Mo gradually became used to her. However, there was a question that was swirling in his mind. What was going on? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.